and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
May we please be seated. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, we will start with a word of prayer, and I'd like to invite Pastor Nia Kenzwa to give us an opening prayer.
Amen. And we please rise as we take the prayer. Our Father and our God, we want to thank you this morning. First, for the breath of life. We thank you for your grace and mercy upon every one of us here present and those who are on their way here. We thank you, Lord, because it's not by our power nor our might, but by your grace alone. To you be all the glory, to you be all the adoration. Thank you, King of Kings. Thank you, Lord of Lords. We thank you, Lord, for this occasion to honor your servant and your son, Pastor Ituah Ighodalo, on the occasion of his 63rd birthday. We commit this colloquium into your hands, O Lord. We ask that you have your way. Take control, take preeminence. Let everything that we do here today glorify your holy name. Thank you, Father. Take charge, and may your name be blessed. In Jesus Christ's mighty name we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Kenzwa. May we please be seated. Next, we're going to take a welcome address. If I can find the gentleman. Jeremiah, where are you? Okay. I'd like to invite Jeremiah Kinshele, founder, Triumph Foundation. Please put your hands together for him.
Good morning once again. And I want to appreciate everyone for coming to this fourth colloquium organized in honor of Pastor Ituah Ighodalo. I want us to clap for ourselves for coming this morning. Your Excellencies, the chairman of today's occasions, General E.K. Wanchuku, and the keynote speaker, Mr. Atedo Peter Said, and all our discussants, Professor Oyawoye and Mr. Ruben Abati. My speech is in the page, is in the program, but I will just paraphrase the program. On behalf of Triumph Foundation and the Trinity House, I welcome you all, and I express my deep sense of appreciation for supporting in making this annual event a reality. When we started this event, there was up and down. At the time, we were about to give up, but God strengthened us. And I want to appreciate Pastor Ituah for supporting this event, for making it to stay. And by next year, it's going to be bigger, larger, because next year we're going to be celebrating the 5th anniversary of this annual colloquium. Unlike the first colloquium, Within the past year, until a few weeks ago, a large Ituah Ighodalo'S family have experienced the passing of the loved ones in business, faith, ministry, and enterprises, and career, and in all facets of life. You know, this colloquium was a bit silent because of what event that happens in the last 2 and 1 month ago. So the event there's no a lot of publicities just to mark it this year. And we trust God by next year, it's going to be a bigger event. And I will appreciate you if you can just rise up on your feet by just keeping a minute silent for the beloved departed, like our sweetheart, Pastor Ituah Ighodalo'S, the late wife of Mr. Chike Obi, and all the departed that fought for Nigeria to make Nigeria stand. Just a minute silent for them. May God continue to grant all the families and associates of departed strength to preserve the founding memory and to forge ahead in gratitude to God for his unfailing mercies in the name of Jesus Christ. Please take your seat. This event will target the mistake Nigeria have made over the years. See the mistake. There are a lot of mistakes. So we are going to be hearing from our keynote speakers and our chairman. They have seen the 4 walls of this world, and they have seen the mistake we have made since we took from 1960 up to now. But one that we just point this morning is one of the critical things that is very painful to my heart. Every time I walk through Lagos, all our factories have been converted to church. And we have allowed all our manufacturing sector to be dominated by the foreigners, which is not good for our nation, Nigeria. Citizens, our youth are going out of the country. They pay them peanuts. You see a graduate studying Unilag collecting 80,000, while somebody that's studying in India, just a technical school, paying $3,000, $4,000 in our own country. We are now a slave in our own country. These are the issues that we need to discuss in our country, Nigeria. And we have sold our birthright. All our manufacturing are given to the foreigners to run. And it's not adding up to our economy. At Triumph Foundation, we believe that a new Nigeria of our dream will emerge. Notwithstanding, but we have identified a mistake and we have chosen the right path for true restoration. Like you gather here and listen virtually, I can rest assured that distinguished keynotes and other special guest discussants of no status will bring their resourcefulness to bear in this theme for this year colloquium. Our expectation that in the next 365 days, we truly reflect our collective resolve for repositioning our nation and our continent. Our immense gratitude once again to all our partners, our guest speakers, our co-organizer, and everyone that have honored us with their presence at this time of this year colloquium. And I want to thank all our team, Mrs. Lura Kenyo, Pastor Olu Victor, Sister Grace, and all of them that supported us. I want you to help me clap for them. You are all welcome, and God bless you.
Please put your hands together for Jeremiah Akishele. Jeremiah has done a lot and has put a lot into this annual celebration of this great gentleman. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive very quickly into the meat of the matter. It is indeed our pleasure, privilege, and honor to have General Ike Nwachukwu here with us today to chair the proceedings of this lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, the General requires no introduction, and even though we have his profile on page 7 of this program, this is just but a a snippet into the times and the life and the contribution of this great Nigerian. But permit me, just before I usher him to his seat, to just paraphrase. General Nwachukwu, I'm sure we can all attest to the fact that he is and remains a completely detribalized Nigerian. General, I see you were born on the 1st day of September 1940, so effectively you are 83 years old, so we truly thank God. Please put your hands together. Looking very, very good, General, and we're truly thankful to God for keeping you in good health. And I'm sure we will hear you speak and share some of your views regarding how we have found ourselves at this particular point in our journey to nationhood. Beyond discussing the problems and the mistakes Nigeria made, we're hoping that we'll all walk away from this event today with some clarity and some nuggets and some guidance on how indeed we can turn around this great nation of ours so that it can truly, truly deliver on the great potential that we have. General has had a distinguished career in military, the Nigerian military, and indeed leadership. He had a stint in journalism at the West African Pilot before he enlisted at the Nigerian Military Training College in Kaduna and was commissioned upon graduation as a second lieutenant. He was a member of the Joint Military Council in the 70s. He was also part of the a core group of distinguished military men, including Ndubuisi Kano, Admiral Ebitu Kiwe, and so on and so forth. At one time, he was the military governor of the old Imo State. Shortly thereafter, he attained the rank of Brigadier General. Subsequent to that, he was the Adjutant General of the Nigerian Army. He later became Minister of Employment, Labor, and Productivity between 1986 and 1987. In 1987, he was promoted to the rank of Major General. After that, and this we all remember with a lot of fondness, his stint as Nigeria's Minister of External Affairs. You know, he really, really celebrated and epitomized the Nigerian spirit in that particular national assignment. And we are all truly, truly proud of his achievements and his efforts at showcasing this great and wonderful country of ours. As a minister, he introduced the concept of economic diplomacy, the concept of economic diplomacy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome with me our general, an officer, and indeed a gentleman, General Ike Nwachukwu, the chairman of our event for today. Please rise and don't stop clapping until he is comfortably seated. Please keep clapping, don't stop clapping, don't stop clapping. General, we welcome you, sir. Don't stop clapping, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you. Can we please be seated? We have other panelists, a keynote speaker. We have our discussants. Everybody is here. And I would like at this point to yield the microphone to our chairman for him to give his brief opening remarks. And I'm sure in the course of the lecture, we will certainly invite General to intervene at various times and share with us from his fountain of wisdom. General.
No. I'm still strong. Our celebrant, Pastor Ituah Ighodalo. Our lead speaker, or keynote speaker, at the Peter side. Our discussants, Dr. Barty and Professor, I don't have it here now, but you know who really. Our distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Ituah for inviting me to chair this very historic colloquium. The mistakes that Nigeria has made. When he asked me, I just wondered why Ituah would ask me to chair an occasion like this. I recall that on one of the boards that I serve, the Africa Cancer Center, and we needed an additional hand, appropriately so. I then requested the board to invite Ituah. So when he said, come and chair this occasion, I said, okay, payback time. So Ituah, thank you. Now the mistakes Nigeria's made is a wide-ranging subject to deal with. Yet it is all important to know them for our survival as individuals, ethnic groupings, a country or a nation. The wise, I am told, are expected to learn from their or other people's mistakes, and I do hope that that will play out today as we discuss this theme. As I join in welcoming you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I must state that today's colloquium, in honor of Pastor Ituah Ighodalo, is well appointed. Pastor Ighodalo is a strong spiritual leader, known for his commitment to a better Nigeria, a high moral values, philanthropy, humaneness, which distinguishes him amongst his peers. Ituah is one of our very best in all respects. We are therefore obligated at this colloquium to point out the principal mistakes the country and Nigerians have made, and to lay bare how to contain, deflect, and or determine them by setting the course for dealing decisively with such mistakes, so that the positive growth and development of the Nigerian nation and its peoples will be assured in perpetuity. But some of the questions that require genuine attention are, and they are by no means exclusive nor exhaustive, but a guide to the expected discussions we'll have later. And I begin by asking, was the surrender of our forebears to colonial rule a mistake? Was the 1914 amalgamation of Nigeria a mistake? Were the agreements by our political leaders, those we fondly refer to as our founding fathers, to continue with Nigeria as defined by the British leading to independence in 1960 a mistake? Was the 1966 January military coup and the July 1966 counter coup mistakes? Was General John Thomas Omonakwe Agoyeronsi discarding the federal structure for a unitary arrangement a mistake? Was General Yakubu Gowon reversal of Ironsi's decree and return to a quasi-federal structure, yet not totally jettisoning unitarism a mistake? Is Nigeria not being a true federation a mistake? Is the culture of not making merit the basis of governance and business engagements in Nigeria a mistake? Are the clamors for better accommodation by the ethnic nationalities within the Nigerian space a collective mistake? Is not granting audience to voices seeking better recognition and representation of their ethnic nationalities in what is today's Nigeria, especially the call for renegotiation, devolution of powers, restructuring a mistake? Were the efforts made by various governments and organizations to find an agreeable basis for mutual and harmonious coexistence and share of our national wealth a collective mistake? Are the calls for renegotiation by the ethnic nationalities as the kind of country they wish to belong to a collective mistake? Is adopting the presidential system of government a mistake? Is asking that we return to a parliamentary mode of government in Nigeria a mistake? Is the call for restructuring or remodeling or rebuilding Nigeria to become a sustainable and enduring state a collective mistake? Is not having the state and local police a mistake? Is seeking to make Nigeria a proper nation a collective mistake? Are the various military midwife constitutions, particularly the 1979 Constitution, albeit drafted by distinguished by Chief F.R.A. Williams and Professor Ben Nwabweze, both of blessed memory, which gave the central government extreme powers over the peoples and their resources, mineral and human, and not subjecting that draft constitution to a national referendum before promulgation a mistake? Is the removal of the provision of referendum from the 1979 Constitution and subsequent Constitution of Nigeria a mistake? Nigeria, we all know, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, was carved out and amalgamated by the British in 1914. The deed was for 100 years, and it expired in January 2014. Was our unwillingness as a country to renegotiate its continued existence as Nigeria a mistake? Some more questions for you to think about. Is embarking on the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, a mistake? Is the liberalization of the economy by successive military and democratically elected governments of Nigeria a mistake? Is our reliance, our over-reliance on oil revenue and virtually abandoning agriculture and agricultural development a mistake? Is abandoning the completion of a Hijacked steel plant and other steel plants in Nigeria by governments after governments a mistake? Is limiting the use of existing seaports and not developing new ones to service a Nigeria with a fairly extensive coastline a mistake? Is neglecting proper regulation of vital industries such as oil and gas, power and energy, communications, etc., a mistake? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today is a day for you to think through Nigeria's mistakes. And I want to ask a few more questions. Is asking for proper funding and equipping of our armed forces and security agencies a mistake? Is asking Nigerians to relate to its security forces with a greater sense of responsibility in the overall performance of their civic duties a mistake? Is persistently ignoring the root causes of our communal and ethnic tensions and insurgency and terrorism by government a mistake? Is the reluctance by government to prioritize investment in modernization of its security, structure, and technology a mistake? Is not having a total national defense policy a mistake? Is taking over our schools from the missionary by governments at state and federal level a mistake? Is not teaching our history in our schools a mistake? Is our refusal to put our culture and social values at the center of public policy a mistake? Is asking more funds to be made available to education, particularly for science and technology, a mistake? Is not setting religion apart from the state of Nigeria a mistake? Is not safeguarding our fundamental human rights, particularly regarding freedom of speech, freedom of movement, right of residency, right to vote and stand for election, freedom to affiliate with political parties of your choice, and adherence to rule of law a mistake? Finally, in thinking this through, I ask, the belief that Nigeria is good, that we're all well, could that be a mistake? I believe that the solutions to Nigeria's and its people's problems will emerge when we candidly address and answer these questions, and many more that will emerge from this colloquium. And I also believe that from these answers will come quite easily the will to do right by all manner of peoples and interest groups that form the main ingredients of this country called Nigeria. The 2014 National Conference did just that. And that was why all the delegates, by consensus, made the crucial recommendations that they did to salvage our country. And I strongly recommend that we do not set them aside. Only by courageously facing the truth can Nigerians and Nigeria begin to heal from the mistakes and hurts of the past and commence the transformation to a better future. And perhaps, and indeed perhaps, will emerge the nation of Nigeria where no one is oppressed, where the truth prevails, where all are equal, where fairness is upheld, where there is a freedom of speech and association, where justice reigns, and where your gender or your mode of worship gives you no advantage over your peers. I again believe that if we get the structure of our country right, the rest will follow. But drawing from my experiences in diverse contexts, I understand that defining one's entity, one's identity, and one's purpose is essential before determining the appropriate strategies, be it military or non-military, to defend or counter the opposition. A nation in a state of perpetual flux is inherently challenging to defend and to project as a battle axe. And this, to my mind, is a predicament our country currently faces. That said, I am confident that our lead speaker, our own Ituah Ighodalo'S, distinguished for his scholarship, innovation, vision, and an econometrist, and our equally matched distinguished discussants will illuminate the mistakes Nigeria made and profile country solutions to them. I expect them to set us forth on the path, all paths, should we conscientiously stick to, that will ensure that we do not repeat our earlier mistakes. I'll take that again. I expect them to set us forth on the pathway or pathways, should we conscientiously stick to, that will ensure that we do not repeat earlier mistakes, avoid the new and costly ones, and to collectively renegotiate and propagate and pursue a better Nigeria for our children and our grandchildren and generations after them. It becomes, therefore, our bounden duty to join all well-meaning Nigerians in building a better and more inclusive, more tolerant, more accommodating, more law-abiding, more safe and progressive country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to do otherwise would be a betrayal of our citizenship and the generations after us. I pray that all goes well with our country and us all. In Jesus' mighty name. Thank you.
We can do better than that. Let us make it louder. Let us make it louder for an elder statesman. I was almost getting lost while listening to his distinctive, good diction, even at this age. Another round of applause for the General, please. Thank you very much. We would like to bring our discussants and our keynote speaker up. We would want them seated while we take their profiles. Without much ado, sir, we would like to invite Mr. Ituah Ighodalo'S to the stage. A round of applause. Our keynote speaker for today. Thank you very much. A round of applause, please. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Thank you for honoring our invitation. We appreciate you. I would like to bring up to the stage Professor Mrs. Olubukola Oyawoye. Thank you very much for honoring the invitation. We welcome you. Anyone, anyway. Thank you very much, Ma. Finally, most definitely not the least, Dr. Ruben Adeleye Abati. You're welcome. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Before bringing our keynote speaker to the podium, we'd like to tell you a little bit about him. A very humble man, titled from Opobo Kingdom, but he does not like to magnify this. Ituah Ighodalo'S was born to the family of Chief Michael Clement Atowari Ighodalo and Patricia Wune Boloba Bob Manuel in July 1955. In 1965, he was admitted to King's College as a 10-year-old boy. He then proceeded to the City University London between 1973 and 1976, where he obtained the Bachelor of Science degree in Economics. He went on to obtain an MSc also in Economics from the London School of Economics and Political Science in 1977. His executive education is wide, varied and includes the owner, president management program at the Harvard Business School between 1991 and 1993. He was conferred with an honorary Doctor of Science degree by the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and was also elected an honorary fellow of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers on the 1st of April 2019. Peter Side founded the Investment Banking and Trust Company Limited, IBTC, in February 1989 at the age of 33. At the age of 33. At the age of 33. Thank you. He founded the Investment Banking and Trust Company, IBTC, at the age of 33. He served as the bank CEO, that is Stanbic IBTC CEO, till 2007. He was, until not too long, a group chairman of Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC between August 2012 to March 2017. He is currently the chairman of Entrenched Limited, which commenced business on the 1st of January 2015. He also sits on boards of the Standard Bank of South Africa Limited and Standard Bank Group Limited. He was a member of the National Economic Management Team between the year 2007 and 2015. A member of the National Council on Privatization between 2010 and 2015. Until the end of March 2020, Peter Side sat on the board of directors of Flour Mills of Nigeria, Nigerian Breweries, Unilever Flour Mills of Nigeria. He was non-executive chairman of Cadbury Nigeria PLC from April 2010 to 30th June 2020. Peter Side resigned from the boards of all these quoted brands in Nigeria so as to focus more on his time on the work of ANAP Foundation and the group at large. Please, let us have a rousing round of applause as we bring forward to the podium Mr. Atedo Peter Side. Thank you, sir. He's not here yet. Your applause. Thank you, thank you.
I'm the chairman of the occasion, General Ituah Ighodalo'S, and I should disclose publicly today that he's my in-law, but he has not paid me dowry yet. And my fellow discussants, Professor Oyawoye from Ekiti and Dr. Ruben Abati, who wears multiple hats, including Arise TV and many other hats. He has no hair, but he doesn't want to cover his bald head like I do. You know, let me begin with some confessions, because people ask me, who chose this topic about mistakes Nigeria made? Of course, Ituah invited me to come for his birthday colloquium, and between us, he asked me, what should we make the theme, or what should I talk about? And I told him that I thought it was important that we discussed some important mistakes that Nigeria has made, but not with the intention of just discussing mistakes and going away, because that's not in my DNA. The whole purpose really is see whether is there a way forward, is there a common thread to these mistakes, and can you therefore, with the audience interactively, begin to think about the way forward. If we thought we were on the right path, there would be no need for all this. The chairman mentioned the national conference of 2014. It went on to 2015. I was the federal government delegate at the national conference, and at the plenary session, they gave each of us a chance to speak for about, I don't know whether it was 10 minutes, about whatever we thought was important as our opening contribution. And at that time in 2014, I chose to speak about 9 important mistakes that I thought Nigeria made. So I'm not reinventing them, but I'll just quickly run through what in 2014 I told the national conference were 9 major mistakes that Nigeria made. Unlike the general, perhaps also reflecting my being junior to him, I deliberately focused on actions taken after independence. Because in my little mind, mistakes made in 1914 or earlier were not really Nigeria's mistakes. You can almost ascribe them to perhaps the British made the mistakes, even if we were contributory. So, just running quickly through, and interesting, there's some common threads already with what we heard from the chairman. The 9 mistakes I identified then were: number 1, and sometimes I will mention historical events, but what I define as the mistake is not the event itself, but something that led to the event. So, the general mentioned 1966 coup, and January 66 coup, July 66 coup. Coups happened in many places, not necessarily mistakes in themselves. So what I'm focusing on, what was it that led to the coup? Because if you don't understand what led to something, then you can repeat it. So in my own opinion, the mistake that was made that led to even anybody thinking about a coup in January 1966 was that in the aftermath of the elections in the Western region, politicians failed to curb the excesses of their supporters. If they had curbed those excesses and had toned down and there was peace, I doubt if there would have been a coup in January 1966. So if you're following my train of thought, the mistake was an inability or a refusal to curb the excesses of your supporters. We are still prone to making that mistake periodically. So that's number 1. Then number 2 was, again, talking about January 1966 coup, July 1966 coup. Both were very violent. Indeed, the aftermath of the July 66 coup was even more violent. What that July 66 coup sent as a signal to the nation was what I call the mistake, which is that the solution to violence is greater violence at all times. So that mindset of if there's violence, the solution must come out of greater violence was the mistake. Because if you live with that philosophy, it may haunt you repeatedly. The third one was that many people in various offices started believing, for whatever reason, that they must get the spoils of that office, which meant that people no longer started believing that they came to serve. Indeed, as soon as you got an office, there was pressure on what are you bringing out of that office for the rest of us. That's the third item. The fourth one I identified was, I said the elites, for whatever reason, decided to bring religion into politics. If you notice, I did not mention ethnic factors as a mistake. In almost all countries, ethnic factors initially become the bedrock of political activity, especially in diverse countries. So that by itself is not the mistake. But it's when some decided that they will bring religion into politics, it then made the mix a bit more volatile. And then the fifth one was that as a nation, we never embraced proper conflict resolution mechanisms. Perhaps if we had, there might have been no civil war, because it is the absence of or inability to adopt even, should I say, global best practice at resolving conflicts that allows problems to grow and get out of hand, all the way to our sliding into a civil war. The sixth one, I will look at the general and with no apologies explain that. I think one of the mistakes that the military brought into governance was when they almost totally destroyed standards in the civil service from the mid-70s. Because from that point on, civil servants no longer felt that they had security in any sense and became very almost transactional in their dealings with the rest of the populace. People expected to be incentivized and expected to be settled. The next one I will mention is that it's a problem. The words of our leaders generally have no meaning and have not had meaning for some time. And that is, we were trying to run a society where, for many people, their word was not their bond. In fact, if you heard them pronouncing something, you knew not to believe it. If they promised you A, you expected anything but what they promised. That has been the recurring theme. Please, I'm not saying these things are unique to Nigeria. I'm just pointing out things that have reared their head here and are still stuck with us. So, the eighth one was, I would say, is that we enthroned injustice. You can almost argue that in a society, if you make it impossible for people to achieve justice, indirectly you've enthroned injustice. And once you've enthroned injustice, many other things begin to fall apart slowly, because including a resort to self-help and all kinds of manifestations. And we'll come back later to discuss the judiciary. But generally, I'm pointing out that a society where people feel that they will not get justice is vulnerable. And then the ninth one and the last was that I said then we embraced moral hazard in the worst possible way. What do I mean by that? By moral hazard, it was a term that bankers use a lot. By that I mean when you reward bad behavior. So if a society constantly rewards bad behavior, and please don't think about this in a narrow sense of only government. If all of us constantly reward bad behavior, somebody steals billions, he comes out of office, you give him an award, and the whole community hails him. You're rewarding bad behavior. So those were the 9 things I identified then. So I was telling Ituah when we were talking that I even wanted to know myself whether those 9 things have disappeared or whether additional items have come and joined them. Again, nobody is claiming that they are only mistakes. We're talking about mistakes that have the ability to almost destroy the fabrics of a society. Those are the ones that are deeply entrenched and are difficult to get rid of. So I've already explained why is it important to agree upon mistakes, either historical or present. Because it is nigh impossible to solve many problems that you have not correctly diagnosed. So the reason is so that you can solve problems, not because you just want to get involved in a blame game. Some, of course, prefer to blame everything on the laws of the nation, the Constitution. You know, my view on that, I will never argue with them about the Constitution. But a Constitution does for a country what governance and articles of association and so on do for a company. You are never going to clean up a company, clean up a country only by changing the Constitution, or a company only by changing the systems and governance. You need 2 broad actions. That change of constitution or system or organizational way you go about your business. And then you also need an arrangement that ensures that you throw out good people to occupy those offices. If you do only the one, you take a bunch of riffraffs and you change the constitution, they are still going to behave like riffraffs. There's no constitution that will tie their hands. So what we need is a combination of, like I said, to change any organization or company or system or country is to improve systems and improve human beings. If you don't have a system for producing quality human beings and quality leaders, they will pollute any arrangement. So that's why I say it's important that we discuss, accept, or even reject such things. Now, just to show people that one has not forgotten multiple other problems, I'll just run through some of them that even the general might not have mentioned. You know, people talk about the resource cost, oil theft. Yes, people are stealing the nation's resources, environmental degradation, you know, mineral exploitation with scant reward for host communities. Indeed, you pollute the communities. We're talking about instincts that drive elite decisions in Nigeria. It looks as if only two instincts drive elite decisions in Nigeria, and they are largely greed and fear. Again, I am not saying it's unique to Nigeria, but there's something wrong about the society where the two critical instincts that drive the behavior of the elite are greed and fear. Because in some other settings, you would have hoped that what would be driving people is a desire for the greater good, or to ensure that the system works. So we have a situation now where we appear to be losing the fight against insecurity. Kidnapping is now a very lucrative activity. You know, President Tinubu is not Yar'Adua. When Yar'Adua was elected, he was talking about electoral reform immediately from day one. We have not heard anything of that sort from the current president. Does that imply that we're happy with the way the last elections were conducted? Some of us would have hoped that Nigeria would progressively be carrying out electoral reform. If you don't demand it, you won't get it. Then there are all these issues about how we are trying to tackle insecurity, one level of policing at the federal level. And some of us, right from the national conference, kept explaining that. And please, some of us travel. We go to our home societies, and you wonder, how does a policeman from Adamawa get involved in resolving petty crimes in the riverine community? He does not speak the language. He arrived 4 weeks ago. He does not know anybody. The whole idea of policing in most parts of the world that is most effective is that the local policeman walking down the beat has local knowledge. He even knows the well-behaved citizens from the criminals. He knows those who are on the fringe and things like that. When you remove all of that and you just bring strangers in uniform into a community, what chance do they really have? Local policing in most other environments, the policeman even has his informants, people he has cultivated and all that. We lose all of that. Nobody is saying we don't understand the dangers of state police. People get worried. We're talking about 3 levels of policing: federal, state, and community. And I put it to you that without having some form of local policing, it will be impossible to solve local crimes. It's not the FBI that solves local crimes in Buffalo or in Wyoming. What chance do they have? You need local knowledge and local personnel, boots on the ground. So issues have come up. As a nation, our revenue as a percentage of even our budget is not good enough. Our revenue as a percentage of GDP is among the lowest, even in Africa that is poor. So what does that tell you? We are not good at generating revenue. People occupy political space or get political appointments to struggle for whatever little revenue is coming out. They're not really growing the pie, nor are they in any way taking the necessary actions to ensure that we come up with revenue to GDP figures that are more in line with what you expect from a country like Nigeria, which would be at least doubling or tripling our current revenue to GDP ratio. Of course, we know about poor infrastructure. I mentioned earlier judiciary and leakages. We could go on and on. But where does all that lead us? I think it's important to find a common thread. All these things you defined, is there a common thread? Because, like they say, when police go to a crime scene, they get all the evidence and they look and see whether there's a pattern to the fraud. If you can discover the pattern to the fraud, probably you're making some progress. The common thread that I see today in 2024 is that many actors, political actors, business actors, are actually competing at at a game called state capture. If you forget about the particular offenses they commit, what is the common thread through all those things? What do I call state capture? As Nigeria, it's a Nigerian state, it's supposed to work for 200 million Nigerians. But if I'm concerned with making sure that it does not work for 200 million Nigerians, it only works for me and a handful of persons. I'm trying to capture the state and make myself the priority. So the point I'm making is that you can change the word state capture, you can call it corruption, but let me tell you why I'm careful not to just call it corruption. Because corruption presumes that you are doing something illegal, and it is usually has to be illegal. But state capture, the danger with state capture is that sometimes it is legal. I can organize the affairs of my state. Take Abia State recently. The governor revoked all the past arrangements on paying pensions to past governors because effectively he thought it was state capture. When you are in office, you decide that you will capture a slice, a huge slice of future revenues forever and ever. It's actually legal. So people are competing now because state capture has become the vogue. If I can find a way in my state to take a slice of the revenues forever, 5%, 10%, if I can go into a government ministry and take a slice of revenues under some arrangement, if I can create some PPP project, create a dispute with the government, go for arbitration, get a huge slice. The danger with state capture is that some of these things I've mentioned are actually legal. Legal in the sense that if I have an arrangement that says 1/10 of the revenue of River State, where I come from, accrues to me or my company forever, and the law was passed, it is legal. Is it ethical? Probably no. So I'm trying to point out to you that it's not about just corruption. That's too narrow a definition. The real game at hand is state capture. And what is happening is that political actors, business elite as well, I don't want to exclude businessmen, all believe now that they have a divine right to find their own way using agents in government and all to capture something for themselves. And to bring it even nearer home, there was a time when if a poor man educated their child well, that child may get a job in NNPC and may become the breadwinner. And even with an extended family system, the whole family could somehow benefit from the one well-educated child. What do we have today? I put it to you that the poor man's child does not get a look in into NNPC. What we have, and I use NNPC as one example, not to waste our time. What we have is that persons who got into NNPC on merit entered that place and changed the system together with political actors and made it impossible for merit to become the basis for gaining admission into the place. So the truth is that even the interview lists of those organizations, if you do not have a godfather, you don't even make it. So what are we really doing? Many of us in this room got educated. Our parents or ourselves, on account of our education, got a job, and we began to climb up. Today, the top 1%, 2% of Nigerians that already were in control have progressively removed the ladder and made it impossible for a poor man's child to ever join them. And the saddest thing about it is that this is not an easy problem to solve, because if the mindset of the leaders is that they're going to capture things for themselves largely and only give crumbs off the table to their followers, it's going to continue almost forever until such time as some people decide they want to do something about it. Now, interestingly, why I said it's complicated, there's something called the Stockholm Syndrome. There have been studies that have shown that often you get people no longer understand who is holding them down. They actually celebrate and applaud that person for as long as they're getting some crumbs off the table. With that sort of mindset, if it continues unchallenged, then this status quo can stay endlessly. So, what is it that we need to do for the majority of Nigeria's 200 million population. They are not direct beneficiaries of state capture. Indeed, they are the victims. Even look at the way we are distributing so-called palliatives and all that. How can you send 100,000, let's say, bags of rice or beans to Kano that has 10, 15 million hungry people, and you say you are doing something? In all honesty, even the method we have used to try and put in place safety nets are totally unserious and show that there is no intention to ensure that any assistance gets to the poorest of the poor. If anything, it's an arrangement by some narrow elite, again, to even capture what was voted for the poor. And to just give you an indication, because I will try and round up, because I really want to hear from the discussants and from the audience. You know, in 2019, I was the keynote speaker at the Economic Summit. It was 25 years old, the summit. Ituah's brother, Aswe, bullied me to come in to speak as the keynote speaker, and I went there. And I told them something that, you know, the fuel subsidy is unaffordable. But more importantly, I pointed out that unlike 2012, when the financial sector, the fintechs, were almost not well developed enough, that even in 2019, more so in 2024, we actually have the instrument through the new national ID card, which is actually a payment-enabled instrument. Every Nigerian has a name. So you could actually, if you were serious, issue this damn card to every Nigerian. All of them have their name. But for whatever reason, the government always stops short of giving them the card. If you give them that card, then you don't need to ask people to queue up for anything. You can program a payment and give a particular segments you like, or you pick 5,000 today, 10,000 tomorrow. Asking people to come and queue up somewhere in a warehouse and they kill themselves, that's wickedness. It's callous. Because you have the instrument but you don't want to use it. You don't want to use it because it's too transparent. Let me tell you one more thing about that national ID card and the name. And think about it, you know, I challenge you, Ruben. Do you know that if they gave everybody a national ID card, you wouldn't need a PVC? It has more data on it than the bloody PVC. Why do you want to insist on the PVC? Because it makes it possible for rogue INEC officials to decide who they can disenfranchise in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, you can do so simply by a knowledge of surname types. You can decide you want to disenfranchise a particular ethnic zone, and they cannot stop you. So the point I'm making is that, and people come to me and say, you know what, let's get ready for the next election. I said, look, nothing wrong. I will never say, let's just lie down and give up on our country. Let the same people stay there forever. But are we going to repeat the same process where people are going to issue PVCs? We'll be discovering some with surnames from largely one ethnic group buried somewhere and things like that. Why would you take part in a race that you know it is rigged without, you may still have to take part, without demanding that the rules be changed? So I'm saying that we cannot just do the one alone, which is just say, how do we take part? Why should you take part in a race with INEC that till today has not brought out polling level results in Rivers State and Lagos and a few other places that you can add up and arrive at their total? The initial excuse was that it was sub judice. The case is over, not so. And also, if you won an election and it was convincing as you claim, you should be the one insisting that give everybody the detailed results. What is there to hide? Forget about the fact that if you go to the IREV, I went there last night before I came here, the altered resources are still on display. There are still polling units where it says the result withheld. Because they know that if you give us all the information, we can all add, we can also see the alterations and begin to do some modeling as to what the real result was. So again, I'm not saying that Nigeria has always had perfect elections. No such thing. But I'm trying to show the danger of taking part in a polluted process without demanding a reform of that system. And in any case, common sense indicates, because it's intuitive, if you honestly, have you seen somebody that came first in the class, you got a result, you have the best results in the class, so you start trying to alter the results. What are you altering them for? You're the one that will be insisting, leave them as they are. Let people see that I won. But when half the results you added up for yourself, you can see them altered left, right, and center. It raises a question. Now, the point I'm making is that, so what should we do? What must we do? Because that was the purpose of all this. I will mention 6 things that I think we must do. And I'll challenge you to tell me, no, this one is irrelevant, this one you must not do. Number 1, I will choose my words carefully. The kind of change I'm asking for will never happen unless we keep our youths interested and engaged in the political destiny of Nigeria. That's why some of us started efforts before the last election to mobilize the youths, get them interested, say, no, you cannot give up on Nigeria. Go and get your PVC. Queue up for 4 hours. Let them dribble you. It is your country, it's your right. Because until nobody's going to come from outer space to come and change Nigeria. Nobody's going to come from Australia. It's only the people who are here who will bring about the change. And those with the biggest stake in the system are the youth. So all of us here have to consciously encourage them, tell them not to give up, and to be interested in the affairs of their country. Because that is a prerequisite for any kind of positive change. The second one I would say is that, I've already mentioned it, it's no use preparing for elections and you don't demand electoral reform. All of us will live here demanding electoral reform. What are we asking for? Just an improvement and improved efficiency using modern tools. I've mentioned national ID card, issue the damn thing, let everybody be able to take part in an election and vote, and we can monitor. So you have to continue to fight for electoral reform. It won't come to you on a plate. Number 3, in the meantime, we must hold every public officer accountable. Think about it. People are involved in state capture. If you just leave them alone, no whistle blowing, no pressure on them, they will even capture more of the state. So the rest of us who are not part of that state capture must constantly get involved in whistle blowing, looking out for examples of state capture, shouting to the high heavens. And it's already happening. Think of all the documents from Abuja that have leaked recently on the internet. Each time a minister, there are ministers now that have been warning the staff in their ministries that if you are caught photocopying anything, you will be sacked. What are they afraid of? That whistleblowing that must continue. So that's number 3, because it's like holding their feet to the fire. If you don't hold their feet to the fire, there will be no change. Number 4, your democracy works best where you have an opposition. So if you really want to improve democracy, you have to work hard at improving the opposition. If you don't do that, what have you achieved? You leave the winners comfortable. They can do exactly as they please. So the only chance you have is to make sure that you are constantly in the mindset of improving and organizing the opposition. It's like they say, give your opponent something to think about. That might curb his excesses. So in effect, number 5, what have I said? I said the real enemy is those who are involved in state capture. If you notice, I'm not calling political parties. You can be in APC, PDP, or Labour Party, or even NMP, and you're involved in state capture. You're still my enemy. The appellation you carry or the group you join does not change the fact of the substance of what you are doing. Like somebody pointed out, when they distributed SUVs that were luxury SUVs last year, end of last year, to give you the context, I pointed out earlier that in 2012, when the economy was buoyant, they bought Toyota Camry. In 2023, when the economy had tanked, we then went for luxury SUVs. It's that same mindset of state capture. People believing that we are here to capture what we can, and the rest of you can't do anything about it. So the point I'm making is that if your enemy is state capture, then you must organize the opposition with people who genuinely are against state capture. Oh, it's no use putting together some grand opposition where some people are only coming there to use that to get their own turn at the same state capture. Then what's the point? You can as well leave those who are there to continue. So the qualification of who you are bringing out in the opposition is important. And then the 6th one, I said we must do 6 things, but really it's 5, because this 6th one is something that we must not do. And that is that you must not give up. See, because change is not going to happen. That state capture, which has become a national pastime, is not going to stop unless those of us or those of you who are not beneficiaries of that state capture decide that we must make it a priority to fight for the rights of 200 million Nigerians. So, therefore, what have I said? Our task is to seek and encourage the few leaders whose sense of patriotism goes beyond seeking their share of the spoils. Indeed, we must identify and celebrate the handful who continue to insist that their priority will remain seeking the greatest good for the greatest number of Nigerians, because they're a rare breed. And then finally, we must learn to put our trust in persons who still exhibit a genuine belief in social justice and encourage them to deploy both modern and traditional tools to expand their network and spread across the nation. So, like I said before, doing nothing is not an option. So what has Pastor Ituah done today? You can call this also his contribution. He could have done nothing, but doing nothing is not an option. And then I will finally close, Mr. Chairman, because we are now in a dangerous territory in Nigeria where if they get your schooling wrong or the year, you better correct it before somebody says that you were there when they called the wrong date and you accepted it. I did not enter King's College in 1965, please. I entered in 1966. You might think that is not significant, but in an environment where people don't even know what year they entered which school or when they came out of the place, it becomes significant. Those who entered in 1965 were Bayo Ogunlesi. He's alive. I entered the year after him, 1966. 2 days after I entered King's College was when there was the first military coup. So I remember what year I entered, and all my classmates can vouch for that. And then, then I will now close by just making something, because on a lighter note, Ituah, on the way in here, somebody insulted me by asking me, "Oh, I hear you were in King's College with Ituah." Then he asked me, "Were you classmates?" Now, you see, that's the problem. When you grow up, the age gap narrows. When I first knew Asui, I could knock him on the head like this. So you can tell that if I entered King's College in 1966, probably then he was running around a nursery school somewhere or a primary school. So please, let's get it very straight. I'm not here because I'm his classmate. I'm here because I respect him and because he's among those Nigerians who are encouraging those who are fighting state capture and shows me that he's patriotic, and I want to join people like him to help to bring about change. So thank you very much, Pastor Ituah. Thank you for the audience, and it's my sincere hope that something will start out of this kind of engagement. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pastor Ituah, and the few people who stood up. Thank you very, very much. 9 mistakes, 6 solutions. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more from our discussants. I'd like to introduce briefly Professor Mrs. Olubukola Oyawoye. Professor Olubukola Monisola Oyawoye was born in 1967 to the family of late Chief David Adejuigbe Akinyemi, a renowned educationist of Ilare Jesha, who hails from Ede, Osun State. She obtained a BSc Honors in Microbiology from Ogun State University and proceeded to Ahmadu Bello University and has a doctorate from the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in the year 2000. In addition, she holds PGDs in Education and Food Management from Ahmadu Bello also, and Hebrew University of Agriculture in Israel. She had this between the year 2005 and 2007 respectively. Her academic honors include British Council Travel Fellowship to the University of Wales College of Cardiff. She is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Microbiology and member Biotechnology Society of Nigeria, Nutrition Society of Nigeria, to mention a few other societies she belongs to. She's a fellow of the International Chartered World Learning Society in the United States of America. Received an award as a Salute Notable and Top Distinguished Professor of the 21st Century given by the Honorable and Erudite Society in the U.S. She is a Life Fellow of the International Chartered World Learned Society. Professor Mrs. Oyawoye has over 30 years of teaching, research, and administrative experience during her lengthy career, and as a professor of microbiology. She has graduated over 20 PhDs and MScs and 300 BScs in the area of microbiology, biotechnology research, public health, corporate science, and ecology. I hear somebody trying to clap. Thank you very much. She has well over 50 articles published in peer-reviewed journals and proceedings. Please welcome Professor Mrs. Olubukola Oyawoye, one of our discussants for today. Thank you very much. Dr. Ruben Adeleye Abati. Dr. Ruben Abati needs little or no introduction, and this profile is very, very abridged, sir. Ruben Adeleye Abati was born 7th November 1965. He's a Nigerian journalist, politician, television anchor, newspaper columnist, all these per excellence. Abati graduated from the University of Calabar, Nigeria in 1985. He later studied at the University of Ibadan as a university scholar. He holds a PhD in theater arts, specializing in dramatic literature, theory, criticism from the University of Ibadan, 1990. A bachelor's degree in law from Lagos State University, 1999. A professional training certificate in journalism from the College of Journalism, University of Maryland, College Park, United States, between the year 1996 and 1997. A certificate in management and leadership from the Said Business School, University of Oxford, in the year 2015. Between the year 2000 and 2011, Ruben Abati was a member and co-presenter of the television discussion program Patito's Gang, founded by Professor Pat Utomi between the year 2003 and 2007. He served as a member of the Governing Council of Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agoiwoye, Ogun State, and was a member of the board of the Lagos State Security Trust Fund between the year 2007 and 2011. Dr. Abati was special advisor on media and publicity to President Goodluck Jonathan between the year 2011 and 2015. He was the People's Democratic Party's deputy governorship candidate in Ogun State for the 2019 gubernatorial election. He was chairman of the editorial board of the Guardian newspapers from the year 2001 to the year 2011. Ruben Abati has been writing for the Nigerian press since 1985, serving as contributing editor, columnist to many publications, covering both the mainstream media and the softened genre of romance, lifestyle magazines. He's very known for his book reviews, essays and commentaries on national, regional, and international affairs. His writings have also appeared in both local and international periodicals and academic journals. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished excellencies, join me as I welcome Dr. Ruben Abati, one of our panel discussants today. Before we go briefly into, thank you very much everyone. Before we go briefly, I would like to introduce a few people that we have invited and who have graced this occasion. We would like to recognize His Excellency, former governor of Cross River State. His Excellency Donald Duke is with us right here. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Deji Ali, the founder, ARM, we welcome you, sir. Mr. Enes Ndukwe, the chairman, MTN Nigeria, we welcome you. Bella Adenuga Disu, we welcome you. Vice Chairman, Globacom, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Funsho Dokoti, ADC gubernatorial candidate for the past election, we welcome you, sir. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. Adedeji Badejo, we welcome you. Principal Information Officer, Directorate of Corporate Services, Federal University, Oye Ekiti, we welcome you. Dr. Tunji Abayomi, SAN, you're welcome, sir. Mr. Felucio Phillips, founder and chairman of Phillips Consulting, we welcome you, sir. Professor Muyiwa Odesonya, VC, Lagos State University of Science and Technology, we welcome you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We welcome Dr. Kweku Tando. Dr. Kweku Tando, we welcome you. Omobade Ronke, we welcome you. Abba Gonkole Omolulu, representing the national, he's the National Organizing Secretary of Afeni Ferry, we welcome you, sir. Thank you very much for honoring our pastor. Gerald Omo-Osage, Pastor General Gerald Omo-Osage, we welcome you, Pastor Gerald. Mr. Franklin Ugu, we welcome you. Professor, I beg your pardon. Professor Franklin Ugu, we welcome you. Mr. Victor Lutenko, we welcome you. Thank you very much for coming. Mr. Ademola Ogufolu, we welcome you. Thank you very much for coming. Folawemi Umunna, we welcome you. Thank you very much for coming. Mrs. Fumi Tomori, representing ALG, also Yetunde Macaulay, we welcome you. Thank you very much. As we take the rest after the discussion, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for honoring Pastor Ituah Ighodalo. Anyone who knows this blessed man of God will know that he is very passionate about this country, and that is why he does this every year. I'll yield the mic now to Bayaro Timi to take us into the discussion of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Peter Side, and our discussants, Professor, as well as Dr. Ruben Abati. Before I come to you, Professor, I noticed a lot of parallels between General Nwachukwu's chronology of some of the mistakes that we have made as a nation. And when Mr. Peterside was also speaking to the subject, he kind of highlighted also some of those, there were those similarities. So I think the first order of business is, let me ask Professor, you've listened to both the chairman as well as our keynote speaker. And between the two of them, I think they've done significant justice to the subject matter of the mistakes that we have made as a nation in the last 64 years or even before independence. So maybe please share, first of all, your reaction to both statements and also your own perspectives, just in case there are certain mistakes that we have made that is still bedeviling us as a nation that we have not really articulated, talk less of looking for a solution. Thank you.
The chairman, it's a privilege sitting next to someone who was a minister when I was serving in Abuja, Suleja, 1987. I remember his name had been announced alongside General Kenry Ade and others as a youth corps. And today, sir, I told him in the room that it's such a privilege to watch children grow. And we pray that we'll continue to benefit from you, sir, all our lives for a long time to come. And to the keynote addresser, I actually would just imagine us queuing up to open an account at IBTC, not knowing that that 33-year-old man, so our youth are not too young to make it or make progress, is behind it. I greet both of you, excellencies around, one of the most admired excellency who is who did wonders for Calabar. We all want to go there. So this morning, my name again is Olubukola Oyawoye. And with my teacher there, you wonder why Abat is my teacher. I got out of Wuku State University in 1987. He came in there 88 to teach English. So he's produced professors. So today, who am I to look and say that all the mistakes have not been outlined? Looking at what Daddy did, I wanted to just stand up and say, we're done today. Because he highlighted from political problems to economic problems. He did it by way of questioning. Is the amalgamation a mistake? And on and on. And when we were done with the speech, I thought we were done today. Thank you, sir. My perspective is mistake Nigeria made. What is Nigeria? An entity, a space of land with 923.8 square kilometers of land mass, over 68,000 hectares of arable land where we can crop. Did that land make any mistake? No, it's a beautiful creation of God, amalgamated together. But Nigerians have made mistakes of not realizing who we are. Great people, situated in a very wonderful landmass that even foreigners want to come and occupy. And I think our greatest mistake is that we have not outlined our vision and our mission. It would have been taken from our national anthem. It would have been assumed that we have a vision and a mission. But I've looked through. They are just wishful thinking. What do we want to be as a nation? Though we've celebrated 60-something birthdays, we've done this, as a nation, what do we want to be? Oh, we are giant of Africa, a statement of facts. Oh, we are a land flowing with honey and milk. They are statements of facts. But what is our mission? A country with a mission to go and make sure that our generations to come do not suffer any harm. You want to think about a country that in the future will be technologically so sound we can be on our own. With our arable land, pasture land, a country that should be able to be self-sufficient, feeding ourselves. Have we outlined what we want to be? What is our commitment level? Nigeria as an entity didn't make a mistake, but Nigerians collectively have made mistakes. We have allowed our self-consciousness and ethnicity to define us. In the days, if I were asked to vote for the best governor, in the days of Donald Duke, I would vote him as a Calabar man. I would have if there were votes, because he did extremely well. I didn't know I didn't know Pastor Ituah from nowhere. But I'm here today because one day I saw a man of God suffered 5 hours coming to attend a program that nobody invited him for. Some people, you can't get to them. I was governor of Nehemiah. Somebody said, the topic you are trying to treat in leadership, this man will be interested. He will do it. And I called him. He picked. Who are you? I said, Governor of Jeremiah Bukola Oyawe. He came, but he was talked 3 hours by the Redeem. And at the time he said, please, can I give this talk in my car with all humility? If we have him as a governor or as a president of Nigeria, this man will be there to listen to everybody. But the mistake we will normally make is we will evaluate him and we will decide that an Edo man. I lived successfully 21 years in the north before I became Commissioner for Environment. I got amalgamated to a level that I spoke the language. I only went to serve in Suleja, then got a job in Bauchi. Then I spoke Hausa, I began to speak. And I went into all the nooks and crannies in the north, doing vaccination for UNICEF. I had my empathy. But then will I now see an average Hausa man and say this is a nonsense man? The mistakes we made is castigating others. Thinking that we are superior. We all complain about white supremacy by some top Western countries. But do I not discriminate against the Gwari lady? Do you not discriminate against the Igbo girl? Am I not discriminating against the Igala man? So first, we are making mistakes of not existing together, of discrimination, of corruption, of inadequate cohesion and unforgiveness, because we never forget. We would always remember an Igbo man hurt you 20 years ago. You're taking it back on an innocent Igbo boy who did not do anything wrong to you. You were betrayed by a Yoruba girl 25 years ago. A coup took place 1960. I was not born. Then you want me to pay for the sin of the man for killing an Hausa man that time, or an Igbo man, or a Yoruba man? Why am I supposed to be paying for the sins of the things I was not even born when it happened? The mistake we make is that we've forgotten that the children that you stole their money, their education money, now you did not train very well today, their children will come and hurt, those children will come and hurt your son that you sent to Harvard, who is not going to be able to stay in Nigeria because of insecurity. You want to be like an American. Every day an American wake up with all the problem he has with Biden, he says, God bless America. But from Nigeria we hear, we are 200 million people, we hear 150 million curses on Nigeria by your pronunciation. This country is bad, this country is going well, blah, 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 blah. And in spirit, it is written. You want it to be like Australia or London, then you throw that next can of Coca-Cola in your hand into the water, and then you clog the waterways, and then somebody's house is flooded, and then you say the leaders. I'm sure they want me to round up, but I will say this one. Last week, I was in a market in Oye, and I priced some things. It came to 200 naira change was meant for me. I gave 30,000. Suddenly the person who took the money, who had agreed to my price, he did not give me my 200 naira change. Oh, I felt too big to quarrel. So I got into my car. He said he won't give me. On the way, after going 7 kilometers, I realized he had miscalculated. His money was short 2,000 naira. Should I behave like him? I turned back, painfully so. And I went back to him and said, you miscalculated. This is the extra money you lost. I was already in Ilupeju, the next town. He opened his mouth. He didn't give me my 200 naira. I returned this 2,000. How are you going to be better than the next person? Are you going to punish him for his mistakes? And you commit a greater mistakes? Will I feed my kids with the food that I bought that he has miscalculated and feel good? Do we fear God? Do we love the next person? These are our mistakes. Are we making way for the youth, entrepreneurship, and all that? This morning or this afternoon, sir, I think we have all made mistakes. We've clogged the waterways. We have blocked the road. We have caused problems. And we need to repent. All of us, me inclusive.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much, Professor. We have all made mistakes. We have all contributed to where our country is at the moment. Hopefully, our objective today is to collectively, I know Mr. Peterside has given us some direction, but we would like to explore that further, the solutions. Moving on from this lecture, what do we need to do each and every one of us. Dr. Abati, before I invite you to speak, I know that Mr. Chairman General has been making some notes, and I know that when Mr. Peterside was giving his keynote, he mentioned something about the military, and I'm going to give you a right of reply at some point. So please note that point. He listed the military as one of the problems, so you will have your right of reply. But distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Dr. Ruben Abati to speak to the subject matter and also to react to the submissions of the General and Mr. Peterside. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Peterside, Professor Yahweh, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, great pleasure to be here. Now, when I was coming for this event, or when I received the invitation, I decided to post the flyers that Pastor Ituah put out on my Instagram page. And one of the reactions I got, I found very instructive. The person said, and I quote, "All talk shops and nothing more. Don't you guys get tired of talking? We see elites of other society take action with the destiny of their countries. But here, now so talk. We have talked enough, organize and change things. I'm sure even unborn kids know the mistakes and problems of Nigeria, but let's keep talking." Well, I like the last part where the gentleman says, let's keep talking. And, we could not have chosen a better occasion for this. Pastor Ituah, when I met him many years back, was in the process of talking. He would write articles on the pages of newspapers. He would be on television. At a point, Pastor Ituah was publishing a newspaper. So since then, he has been committed to this business of trying to remake Nigeria, to build Nigeria. And I think that, what is important is what Socrates says: the unexamined life is not worth living. So we have to keep examining so that we can make progress. And the first thing I like about this event is the note of optimism that I got from General Nwachukwu's chairman's remark. He drew up all the questions, interrogated, raised the questions. I wrote down a nation of mistakes. But when he then said, okay, what we have to do is to seize the opportunity to define the path to the future and ensure that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. So what do you expect? General Nwachukwu is a complete Nigerian. He would definitely be more interested in the progress of Nigeria. And when Mr. Peterside also gave his speech, he ended up saying, we must not give up. In other words, also on an optimistic note, that progress is possible, that Nigeria can be a better place, it can be more inclusive, as General Nwachukwu said, and that to do otherwise is to betray our citizenship. I took that from General Nwachukwu's presentation. But where are the citizens? I asked the question. Are we citizens? How many of us can genuinely say that we believe in the idea of Nigeria? And this is the question that was posed many years back by Professor Wale Soyinka, that when is a nation? Can you really refer to Nigeria as a nation? Because we have a flag, because we have a national anthem that we all sing. When you look at other nations that are making progress, not the kind of thing we have here, there's a sense of identity. That same word I got from the presentation by General Nwachukwu. Okay, what makes us a Nigerian? I think we have not yet resolved that matter. I think the attitude of most people is that, we just belong to different nations. And which takes me immediately to the point made by Mr. Peterside when he said, in drawing up the 9 mistakes that he says he has identified, that he will not start from the amalgamation, that he will start from 1966. Now, there are some people who are in fact convinced that the mistake of 1914 is what we have to correct. That the biggest mistake of all the mistakes, which Mr. Peters said, well, he doesn't want to talk about that, is, according to some people, the mistake of 1914. And that is why they are saying, for this country to move forward, we have to renegotiate the basis of our union. As recently as the other week, when the Patriots had a program in honor of Professor Ben Nwabose, who wrote extensively, on constitutionalism and democracy and all the issues. The man who drew up the constitution of Kenya and Malawi and all of that. Now, blessed memory. The question was, look, can we come together and take another look at the state of our union? However, the Nigerian constitution, this same Nigerian constitution, says that this entity called Nigeria is indissoluble and indivisible. And we have some persons in our midst who are saying, no, in fact, that part of the constitution should be changed. That a nation is a living organism. If it's not working, dissolve it. But of course, nobody who has presided over Nigeria, and not even Mr. Peters, who has created many opportunities for many Nigerians through entrepreneurship, through innovation and investment, we want Nigeria to dissolve. But to think that we will not discuss amalgamation, no. Some Nigerians want, in fact, on the table as the very first subject. Now, what I'll do is to interrogate some of the points made by Mr. Peters. In drawing up the 9 mistakes, he talked about destruction of standards in the service by the military, where we blame the military for everything. We always say never again. That was the refrain when we were fighting for return to civilian rule. We said never again must we have military rule. But the question here is, those who criticize the military for everything, for destroying Nigeria, have you noticed that most of the projects done by the military under the first development plan, second development plan, third development plan, they are still the major projects in terms of infrastructure that Nigeria has today. Their civilian successors have not been able to do better than them. And yet, we tend to blame the military for everything. Okay, Mr. Peters referred to how the military destroyed the civil service. Okay, yes, but that came during the Murtala administration. It was still under the same military that we had those super PAMSECs. Alison Ayeda, Eyujuchiwe, that set that tried to build the Nigerian civil service. But I get the point that Mr. Peters is making, that you need a very strong civil service. You need a strong national bureaucracy for you to be able to achieve many of your objectives. In India, in Bangladesh, part of the secret of their success is that only the best and the brightest are admitted into the civil service. But in this country, standards have collapsed. And the civil service is the engine room of government. But the people you have in civil service now are people who are looking for personal opportunities. They are people who just want to collect bribe. If you don't give bribe, your file will not move. And nothing will move. And which was why I was happy when Mr. Peters talked about greed and fear. Now, what should be the size of anybody's greed? People are greedy in other parts of the world too. People have fear in other parts of the world too. But because the system works, the tendency of average individuals to misbehave is curtailed. And I also like the point that Mr. Peters made about trust deficits. How the leadership, nobody trusts leaders. When our leaders tell us, oh, they are going this way, Nigerians are skeptical. And that has been the case. In 1983, Chinua Achebe wrote a book titled The Trouble with Nigeria. And he identified leadership as the main trouble with Nigeria. Many years later, it is still the same problem. Where are the leaders? And so when Mr. Peterside began to talk about you build a nation by having good people, where are those good people? No, because part of the problem we have here is that we don't have enough good people. So when he was talking about, well, we should trust as part of the solutions, we should trust those ones among us who believe in social justice. The problem is that they are in the minority. How many Nigerians can beat their chest and say, I'm a good person? And which is why I often talk about this gap between private morality and public morality. We are very religious people. Private morality, during Easter, church was jam-packed. I had to tell my wife, we have to go early, otherwise we will not find seat. Because some people will have reached, they will have arrived for Easter Sunday service by 8 a.m. so that they will find seats. Of course, truly, when we got there, we were struggling to find seats. That's private morality. Soon it will be Ramadan. We'll see a lot of people, very religious. But how about public morality? That private morality, the fact that we have churches everywhere, we have places of religious worship everywhere. Why is it that it doesn't translate into the way we run our lives? So we're a country of hypocrites. And that is why I agree with people who say part of the solution is for us to change our attitude. Mr. Peterside defined that by talking about state capture. And he said, well, state capture, he doesn't want to use the word corruption. Professor Patutume ran, I think it was in 2019, for the governorship election in Delta State. Now, he got so badly bruised in terms of his experience. In fact, the day they were going to do the party primaries, he didn't even know the location. In fact, the people who came from Abuja, they had gone back to Abuja before somebody informed him that they finished the party primaries. Out of annoyance, Professor Otome wrote a book titled Why Not? And in that book, he kept using the word like Mr. Peter said, state capture. And he wrote out of anger. And he referred to criminal hijack of the Nigerian state. How some people have hijacked the Nigerian state. And that's why I raised the question. When Mr. Peterside talks about good people, where are we going to find them from? These same good people, are they the ones going to do the local policing, the state police, that he says is a good idea? Are they the same ones that are going to do revenue generation? That revenue to GDP should be something we should focus upon, where some people talk about debt to GDP ratio, but economists like Mr. Peterside like to focus on revenue to GDP. Okay, even if we raise this revenue, what is the guarantee that that revenue that is generated we use for the common good? Or no, he used the word the greatest good, or the greatest number, but it's the same thing, the common good. Now what is lacking here is how to identify these good people. I don't know whether they will come from outer space, but this is our country. We have to keep searching. Now, he talked about the common thread. For me, that common thread is the leadership deficit. But let me go quickly to his point about what we must do. He talked about keeping the youths interested in politics. Well, good idea, consistent with his argument that we should not give up. But where are these Nigerian youths? The ones that have joined Boko Haram, the ones that are into kidnapping, or the ones that are killing soldiers and policemen in Ohoro Forest in Delta State and in Okwama community. So the argument is that Nigeria has a youth bulge and that they constitute the population. And they say, oh, we have to involve the youths. But the youths also constitute a problem. So I think to add to that point that Mr. Peterside made, education. I've not had a proper emphasis on education in the course of our reflections this morning. We need to do something about our education system. In 1955, when Awolowo introduced the free universal education, free education as it is called in the Western region, the success that he made was so much that by 1958, the Eastern region also held their own special conference on education. In 1959, the Northern Nigerian leaders, they came together and said, oh, what Awolowo is doing in the West, let us also do it. What is education all about? Competition. And if Nigeria needed education between in 1955-59, we need it more today. Many of our youths are distracted. They are into pools betting. They are busy on X or Twitter, just talking, things that they don't know. Now we need to capture, now using capture in a positive sense, that youth population via education in a world that has become competitive. And that should be a major priority, a national emergency on education, so that we can have children, youths, that can compete in the future. Because we're in the age of innovation, we're in the age of competition, skills are being acquired. This is the age of artificial intelligence. Our own youths are still roaming about playing games and going to pools betting sites or gaming centers, where if you go there, sometimes some of them sleep there overnight. That is a problem. That is one big mistake that we can easily correct by addressing education. Now, Mr. Peterside talked about electoral reform. Oh, of course, we need electoral reform so that our votes can count. So when he was talking about NIN and PVC and all that, we need to get it right, because we were looking for those good people. Then the people must be able to make a choice. He was talking about rewarding bad behavior in this country. Is it possible someday, when they are compiling the national honors list, that Nigerians are allowed to vote on national honors list? Because most of the people who are parading OON, CON, they are the most undeserving lot in this environment. And when we talk about attitude, can we just stop in this country, celebrating people, all these money roads, you don't know the source of their wealth? Once upon a time in this country, if your parents saw you with something that they don't understand where it came from, it will be a very big issue. Because they will tell you, you must remember the son of whom you are. Don't destroy the name of this family. It's my name alone that I have. Oh. You must behave yourself. Some mothers were threatened with divorce. Say, this is your son. Where did you get him from? If you don't go and talk to your son, the two of you will leave this house. These days, parents no longer question where their children get money from. And this is part of the responsibility of the church, the responsibility of parents. Parents also have a responsibility. Now, Mr. Peterside said we should hold every public officer accountable. Well, yes, by asking questions. It's part of what we are doing here. And he said that democracy works best when you are in the opposition, that the opposition should be strengthened. Well, very topical point that he has made. Today, what they are celebrating in Senegal, with the inauguration of Bassirou Faye as the 5th president of Senegal, the youngest elected president in Africa, is the strength of the opposition. In 2023, Macky Sall wanted to toy with the idea of a third term in office, an elongation of tenure. 100 groups, political parties, coalitions, civil society coalitions came together and said, no, it will not happen in this Senegal. And of course, he dropped the idea. When Macky Sall again wanted to give himself tenure elongation through the back door, the election was supposed to be held in February. He moved the goalpost and wanted to remain in office till November. The people of Senegal said no. The opposition faced him. The Constitutional Court had to say no, you cannot change the mandate of the people. And that is what they are celebrating today. He's an opposition politician of the PASTEF party, Patriots for Senegal, who had been in prison, along with Usman Sonko, leader of the PASTEF. He's the one who's been sworn in today. He was released from prison 10 days after he had been elected president. Because the people of Senegal spoke in unison. They opposed the government and they made an informed choice. Is that possible here in Nigeria? And that is why I think the opposition has a major role to play. Not a kind of abusive, name-calling kind of option that we see often in Nigeria. But, informed opposition, an opposition that is committed again to the common good and that offers alternative ideas. Well, I join both General Nwachukwu, Professor Yawoye, and Mr. Peterside in saying that, well, we can do it. It is possible. Nigeria can be great again, but we must put all the issues on the table and renegotiate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Ruben Abati. You clinically dissected the interventions of both Mr. Chairman and indeed our keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, very soon there will be, there is a microphone there, so very soon I will invite members of the audience who may have specific questions for our chairman, our keynote speaker, or indeed any of the discussants very, very shortly. But before I do that, I would like to come back to our chairman, General. I had promised you earlier that I will give you the right of reply. I know Dr. Abati tried to help you answer or partially deflect what was sent to you by Mr. Peterside. He says military governance essentially destroyed the standards within the Nigerian civil service. Dr. Abati says the civil service is meant to be the engine room, the intellectual think tank for the transformation of the nation. I would like you to speak to that. Then I would also like you, sir, in highlighting, you came up with quite a number of mistakes that have plagued or that we have made as a nation. You spoke about our political structure, and that's something that ultimately, Mr. Peterside, I'm going to come to you on because you made some reference to this also. Now, you said that could it be that part of the mistakes we've made has been the choice of political structure? So there is a conversation today about restructuring. So again, we would like your perspectives, because you are well-traveled, you've studied thriving institutions or nations across the world. So we'd like your own perspective on that. So first and foremost, did the military destroy our civil service?
The answer is clearly no. No, because the time the military did what they did, they tried to clean out those that believed were corrupt civil servants. Now, since then, we've been recruiting people to replace those that were set aside. The problem really is the military had policies which we thought at the time were the best for the country. Some of them had come out to be so true, good. For instance, liberalization of the economy through some. We have made it possible at the time for young men and young women to set up banks, for instance. At the Peterside, here is an example of that, and made tremendous success of it. Access Bank, GTB, name them, gave opportunities to Nigerians to use their brains and use their endowments to build a country, build great economies. Yes, there are some mistakes the military made, one of which is unitarizing our polity. What one will give the military the benefit of the doubt, because we are used to straitjacket, top-down command system. So in order to run a country when the military took over, they had to try and run it based on what they understood best, command system. But that has changed. The same military made it possible for parties to come back, made it possible for democracy to be in place. What has failed in our country is the inability of the Nigerian person to stand up for the truth. When you have a group of people coming together and forming a party, the moment they get into power, they do much worse than those they thought they were ousted. So the point made by our head of it side about opposition is very crucial. We need a very strong, vibrant, well-articulated, devoted, loyal opposition to make and hold those in authority accountable. Not until we do so, we would always flounder. Second point here I want to make. I disagree with Dr. Abati that our youths are a problem. No. Because our youth look up to people like me and him for guidance. When we fail them, we've given them the wrong compass to march. Now those who are the problem are the elites in society, given the opportunity to lead, and they mislead our people. Therefore, I have tremendous belief in the Nigerian youth. If you gave them the opportunity, like we gave the Tedaos and the Fola other days, and so on, to set up their businesses, they would excel. Give them the opportunity, give them the guidance, prepare to smack them when they're wrong, and they'll come back to life. I draw your attention to this again. When Buhari Diagbon came to power, I was one of the military governors of Old Imo State. We had why. The same Nigerians that were unrulable. On the why, everybody queued up but did what they should do. So what you need is that leadership, the ability of those who are on top to be prepared to kick you in the back when you don't do it right, and to hug you when you've done it right. Nigerian youth are good. Majority of Nigerians, I repeat, majority of Nigerians are good people. We just have bad elites who need to be brought to book, sanctioned, to make them understand they have a responsibility to society. And that responsibility is to build a good Nigeria for Nigerians. Electoral reforms, that in itself need to be done. We can't have an election where there are so many flaws, at the end of which there's no relinking the processes so that we correct the bad mistakes we made and build a better electoral system. Not only are we digging our country deeper into oblivion, by not doing that, we are denying the young Nigerians their right to choose those they believe should lead them. And we need to make this point over and over again. INEC should understand they have a crucial responsibility to help us present in our leadership those who truly qualify, those who are properly elected by their people, not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, General. There's a particular question that you hadn't responded to, sir. I wanted your views around the political system that you think will work? We're running the federal system. We've run the parliamentary before. People are saying maybe it's time to change the system, that this is not working.
Yes, I led the Southeast delegates to the 2014 National Conference. And I was co-chairman of a committee that looked at the types and forms of government. And we made a recommendation that the presidential system, the way it's run, is not the right for Nigeria. We compromised and said we should do the type we have in France, where you have a president and a prime minister. And we also went further to say that there were too many ministries, we needed to cut them down. And went even further to say that ministers will be picked, 70% of them, from elected members of parliament, and maybe 30% from outside. Why? Because we believe, looking at what happens in the UK and France, that when a minister knows that he or she has a seat firmly in parliament and had only just been invited to be in government, he or she can look the president or the prime minister in the face and say, the hell with you. What you want me to do is undoable. It's not right for my people. Otherwise, I'll return to my seat in parliament. So going even further, my own take is that the presidential system is not the best for Nigeria. It's too expensive. And giving such awesome powers to just one individual as president is a total mistake. Ben Waboise, of blessed memory, with whom he and late Chief F.R.O. Williams drew up the 1979 Constitution, which is basic of the 1999 Constitution, giving so much powers to the presidency, regretted and wrote to say that if there was any mistake they made, that was a crucial one. We need to decentralize, give the states or the federal units autonomy over their people, autonomy over their resources, autonomy over its judiciary, have its own security forces, so they can deal decisively with things happening in their states. They can use their resources to build up their states and pay taxes to the federal. I want to state one more time here, because I say it ever so often wherever I have an opportunity, to say not one state in Nigeria is unviable. I repeat, not one state in Nigeria is unviable. Every state has mineral resources. Every state has people. Every state has land. Every state have the ability to build herself up. I therefore don't expect a state like Abia State, for instance, to expect her civil servants and her staff to be paid the same salaries as the one in Kano. Kano is much more richer than Abia State. Or expect civil servants in Jigawa State to expect to earn the same pay, the same standards of remuneration with those in Lagos State. Lagos is much more richer. Therefore, if we cut our coat according to our cloth and base the way we look after the welfare of our people on our internally generated resources, the men in Daran and Boda and the man in Ogoja, or woman in both women in both places, will not expect to live the same way as the richer state would. Therefore, what I'm saying in short is this, that we must decentralize. Every state should use its resources to build up her own civil service, build up her own economy, build up her own security, and pay taxes to the federal government. The federal government will look after foreign affairs, the defense, and set standards. Thereafter, we would have, in my view, a balanced and a better country. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you indeed. Mr. Peterside, I'd like to come to you very quickly. And please, members of the audience, please start getting your questions ready. After Mr. Peterside, I'll do one round with our discussants, and then I'll yield the floor to the audience. So, Mr. Peterside, two very quick questions. You spoke about constitutional review, and you said, you know, reviewing, rewriting, amending the Constitution is not necessarily the solution, because we will need people to operate or work within those new rules. So my question to you is this: which of the changes should come first? Shouldn't we have the systems, the structures, the processes in place that articulate the carrot as well as the stick, you know? Because waiting for people to reform by themselves may ultimately be a very long wait. So which one should come first? Then a second part, I beg your pardon, a second part to that question, slight deviation, but still the same central theme. We have political challenges, we have economic challenges. In your view, which one should we fix first? Thank you.
You know, my answer to your question will be disappointing. So let me prepare you in advance. My own thinking about Nigeria is as follows. The way to solve our problems is to remember, because some of the problems have been there for decades. The way to move forward is to remember that just it's the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Do not make the mistake of hanging around like the camel, debating which particular straw is going to break the back of the camel. Just keep on heaping all the straws on the back, because the one that you least expect might be the one that will break the camel's back. For instance, if I'm to make a prediction, what is going to bring about change in Nigeria? I said, oh, perhaps if you always make sure you get the youth politically active, like in Senegal. We need just try those basics. What if this is not works in mysterious ways? One threat to this current arrangement on state capture is from a totally unexpected quarter. I'm sure you people on the panel and the audience have the same experience. The number of people who have whispered to me that they are phenomenally disappointed with the government that they worked hard already to put into the federal government. It's almost frightening. But let me tell you, that's the good news. Let me tell you the bad news. When you interrogate them, what is disappointing them? It's things like, I thought they were going to pick a minister from my state. And I thought I was a sure banker. So basically, what he was finding is that because the system, priority is state capture only works when it works because you're cornering something and giving it a handful. By definition, those queuing up in APC who want to be part of that handful are just too many. So there will be a large number of people who feel shortchanged. Now that kind of dynamic can also bring about change, but not of a positive type, because they are thinking that let's find some way of getting our own turn. And we're saying we have to do better than that. But the point I'm making is that I never get into these debates of is it economy first or is politics first and so on. What does it matter? Correct everything you can correct in politics and in the economy as fast as you can. Because you don't know, stop playing God. You don't know what is which particular reform will get you to break the camel's back. So one has to be careful that you don't get into this game of thinking you are so clever, you are so intelligent, that you know the exact, precise policy measure. And you know, I'm also going to move it a little bit because, I mean, there's absolutely no point in getting into a debate about who to blame for what and so on. Let's even remember, please, because Ruben mentioned Nigerian youth. The chairman responded. Let's remember that even the military, everyone got into office, he was 31. He was 31 years old, he was a kid. So let's be careful because, and even those people are alive, and when you talk to them, they will tell you about, my God, they know so much more now than when they were in office. So they're not even pretending, some of them, that they were perfect. I began a bit at 33. I was a kid then. Not only was I a kid, everybody in the bank was younger than me. They were ranging from age 19 to 32. We were all kids. And that's also why I never subscribe, and I'll come to some evidence, to this theory that there's something about Nigerian youth that is not okay. I totally reject that. Nigeria has got, like everybody else, they've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. Amongst our youth, amongst our elders, we have the good, the bad, the ugly, and the very ugly. Among our youth, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. But let me tell you something. The youths who are good, some of them are fantastic. There are so many youths, and let's even give you economic data. Some of the sectors in the economy that are fastest growing, the tech sector, who are the actors there? Show me a 70-year-old in that sector. These are kids in their 20s and 30s, forming companies, fintechs and all. I won't even go into music or going to Nollywood, because those are too obvious. But the point I'm making to you is that part of what has happened is that, again, I'm not blaming the military. The generation of Nigerians who were lucky that on account of coups and others, their generation at age 30, 31 got into these positions. Check Buhari. He was the minister in his 30s, but his first cabinet as a civilian, the youngest person was 50. So is it fair to tell us that he was a genius in his 30s? Of course he wasn't. But the point I'm making is that what has happened is that that generation of Nigerians never wanted to leave the scene. So they constantly redefine and try to hang on to everything to the detriment of the youth. So that today's youth do not have the opportunity that they had. Half these guys were ministers in their 30s. And some of us were old enough to listen to what they were saying. With due respect, the first time I went for a budget, televised budget session at the time, when the Minister of, I was sent by New Breed as a young reporter, when the Minister of Finance finished talking, and then people asking questions, when I asked him my question, there was silence in the room. I asked him to reconcile several things in the budget that were totally contradictory. The man was sweating, but because he was never even ready for that kind of question. Now, I'm going to show you that Nigerian youth are getting better. What has happened is that we have so criminalized the process, like I said earlier, that opportunities which youth get in every other country, like the right to work in central bank if you're a brilliant economist, and the right to work in NFBC, we have withdrawn from them. In fact, what we do is that we keep out the brilliant ones who have no parentage, and then we smuggle in those with all kinds of qualifications in. So we have dealt the youth a terrible hand. But as in the case of Senegal, which I'm sure good men will agree with, it was the youth that got in there through the opposition. So all I was saying was that, like, Senegal did not give up on his youth. Let's not give up on our own youth. Our job as the elders is to stimulate them. In fact, our job is to tell them the story of Senegal and to motivate them. But I'll tell you what, it will be a lot more difficult in Nigeria than in Senegal. For a number of reasons, in Senegal, they had an electoral system. We don't really have one. We have a rigged electoral system, which we have to correct. So I would never agree or subscribe. Then you can look at the numbers, we're 200 million Nigerians. There have to be 10, 15, 20 million brilliant youth in Nigeria. You know, and then also, talking a little bit about this presidential system, parliamentary system, how do you get, which system brings out quality people? The truth is that either system can bring out bad people, and we see it in Nigeria. So I'm not against systems. I'm just pointing out that it's a mistake to think It's only a debate about system. The same group who's the senator today under presidential system will go into the House of Assembly under parliamentary. What is the difference? He was a thief now, he will be a thief then. So that's not the issue. By all means, choose what you prefer, but I'm saying you have to find a way to checkmate that kind of character. Well, that is where change comes from. Perhaps when we are deficient as a nation, it's easy, you can say, and you'll be right always, when you say the problem is leadership and so on. That's a truism. But what we're discussing is, what are the kind of changes we have to make that will now throw up better leaders? That is the real challenge. Otherwise, we won't accept that the leaders are not great. So what are the things we have to do? What are the building blocks? That is the real challenge. And before people give up, take even this government. After they came out with a supplementary budget, after they bought SUVs for parliamentary, I myself was among those who came out and criticized them. The supplementary budget that came out end of last year was a joke. It looked like money for the boys. No priority items were being rushed out and money spent on them just after elections and so on. All that criticism, which some of us took part in, calling them names, saying this is not the way to carry out economic reform, that you should lead by example. You should begin from within. Now let me tell you why it's not energy wasted. Recently, I had 4 things that came out of the presidency. Each one I heard, I had to make sure that I listened well. The first one, showing you some green shoots. The first one, suddenly people who were gallivanting to the New York and Dubai in large numbers announced a travel ban. That for the next 3 months, people should stay in one place and stop wasting their money. Isn't that progress? The second one, usually a president's birthday in Nigeria will be a jamboree. People going around the whole place, wasting government resources, advertising and so on. President said, please, don't embarrass me. Isn't that progress? Do you think he just came if everybody was endorsing nonsense? Then number 3, don't clap yet. Recently they smuggled out something. Forget about whether they follow through. Saying that, we finally realized that there are too many presidential jets, they will sell 3. A blind man knew there were too many presidential jets, but at least they've not recognized that continuing this wastage is unnecessary. That's number 3. Number 4, all of a sudden they remembered the report of Orosanye. So you forgot it before, and then suddenly remembered, again is progress. So I'm going to show you why it is important to hold people's feet to the fire. It makes them begin to think. Because before then, I honestly thought Aso Rock was tone deaf. When I say tone deaf, making pronouncements that were totally out of sync with the mood of Nigerians. Ruben was in Aso Rock before, so you know that it can happen. If you don't, especially if you control those who you give access to, you will soon find that you're totally out of sync with what is going on elsewhere. So these 4 little changes, again, before you clap and celebrate, they exploit it by adding a fee, which is to give a 90 billion subsidy for the Hajj. Again, they went back to being tone deaf. At least that's progress. Before they were totally tone deaf, now there's a mixture. They are doing some good and doing some things bad. So we want to help them to get to a point where they only do things that are good. And please, let's celebrate the correct things that they do. It helps. And condemn the wrong things that they do. Bless you.
Thank you very much. I think we've kind of monopolized the conversation on this side, so I will come back to Prof and Dr. Abati shortly. So ladies and gentlemen, comments, questions, we can take a handful. I see loads of hands. Dr. Abayomi, okay. Another hand there. Where are the women? They are all men here. Okay, thank you very much. So, are they coming to the center? Yes, please. Yes, Dr. Abayomi to the center. Then after you, okay, just wait on the sidelines. Yes. Straight to the point, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You suggested that we should ask questions, but in my view, General has asked all the questions we need to ask. If we look at this paper, there are 40 fundamental questions about our nation. I don't think we need to ask any more questions. I think what we need to do, out of all the questions about the mistakes made by our nation, we should be talking about the mistakes we should not make as we look into the future. And I'm glad that General Ituah was also at the conference in honor of Professor Wuku. I thank Dr. Abati, the 16th century philosopher who wrote the Bible of Politics, Niccolò Machiavelli. He spoke about how things are, not how they should be. I think we have analyzed how things are in our country, but now we should talk about how it should be. In my view, the greatest neurosis of this nation is that we don't actually have a nation built on any foundation. Now, if we look at the paper of General Wuku, at that page, he said, I again believe, and I'm quoting directly from him, that if we get the structure of the country right, the rest will follow. The first thing is, which country? Our country, like I said in Professor Wuku's dialogue, our country is a united nation of Nigeria. A united nation of Nigeria. For the simple reason, it's a very strange country. There is no other country in the world where distinct ethnic groups are providentially placed in geographical zone permanently by God. Permanently. If we are going to build a nation that is going to make progress and meet the needs of the people, to my mind, it sounds to common sense that we should gather together around the table and agree on the terms of our relationship. We are not a nation, we are a nation of nations, United Nations. Yorubas are in the southwest permanently, Igbos in the southeast, the Kanuris in the northeast, Fulanis permanently. Therefore, to begin that we can unify us by force, like the military did, is impossibility in terms of development of this. And there will be no peace, there will be no order, and there will be no good government. So, what is the solution? The solution, in my view, is very simple. Like I said at Professor Wuku's dialogue, first of all, we must build a foundation. You cannot talk of restructuring a nation that has no structure. It is abnormal. You first of all establish a structure of a nation, and you do that through a constitution of the people, by the people, and for the people. The military itself recognized that. That's why it said, we the people. It lied. Of course, it wasn't the people. So, how do we build the future? It's very simple. Let the people come together through a law passed by the National Assembly, because the people have elected them and delegated their power to the National Assembly to make law. The National Assembly was made before the Constitution came into effect. So let the National Assembly pass a law to enable the peoples of Nigeria give to themselves a constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so I see a long line of people. May I please ask, and respectfully so, that I will limit you to a maximum of 2 minutes. there's a long queue of people that have questions or comments. So if it's a comment, keep it short and sharp. Questions, let's know who you are directing it to. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. My question goes to our chairman. The first question is, sir, when you hear the term today, budget padding, which is in trillions now, how do you feel as an elder in Nigeria, an elder statesman? And secondly, sir, when you hear about government appointments coming from, say, one state now, every evening you hear this appointment, that appointment, all coming from one state, all in the name of trusted hands. As an elder, how do you feel? And finally, sir, what will it cost us as a country to decentralize Nigeria? What will it cost us? Thank you.
Thank you. So what I would suggest is, please let's take another one or two more, then we'll run through some answers, and then we would progress from there. Short and sharp, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to make a suggestion. We talked about leadership, we talked about system, we talked about all that. Except the quality of the life of the people is actually improved, you can never have a good, leadership. For instance, in our days, we have what you call civic studies. You had history. You had certain morals that people kept. And I think I'm coming from the point of the church. The church needs to help in this particular area. Because the major purpose of the church is to bring up people with quality moral standards. And it's a shame that most people that comes to the church, for instance, once they enter into politics, you see that they were never born again. And so we have to look at educational system, where we begin to talk about civic, we begin to talk about morals. At least I'm old enough to know that in Nigeria at a time, there was a very high moral standard. People will put their goods on the road. You know how much you were supposed to pay, you drop them.
Okay, sir.
I was going to worry in 1967 on holiday from secondary school. For the first time I saw the military.
Okay,
so
sir.
we need to really work on that. The church needs to work on that. Because I tell you, if you put 100% Nigeria, hardly will you find 95 that has good moral standards.
Thank you very much, sir.
That's what I talked about private and public university. There is a wide gap. Then secondly, finally, concerning the electoral system, we shouldn't have more than a one term. One term for any office, particularly for the president and also even for the governors. And I will tell you the reason why. You can elongate it. If it is 5 years.
Sorry, sir. I think the intervention is fine. Don't elongate it.
Okay. So just one term.
Yes.
One term is enough.
One term of how many years?
5 years or at most 6 years.
Thank you.
You know the reason why? When politicians get into the office, the first 2 years they are there, they are stealing to consolidate what they have taken. They only work for 1 year, but if you know that you have just one term, you will be able to do what you are supposed to do. That's my take.
Thank you.
The foundation of Nigeria should be built on truth.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. Now I have to reduce the time to 1 minute. Please introduce yourself, ask a direct question, or make a quick comment. Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ladio Shoba, and I have a question for Dr. Abati. You mentioned something about the youth and their disposition towards the government in relative terms. And my question is this: how do you advise that the youth that actually have good intentions convince the other youth, the other percentage of the youth, that this people are actually ready to work with us. Because most times when you try to reach out to them, it's like, the reason they are doing things like fraud, things like, voodoo and stuff, is because they see people in government that they cannot trust, people that have left a precedent. When you were youth, you are all great people, and I can imagine how you behaved when you were youth. So what advice do you have to give to us that want to actually make a change, to convince the remaining percentage of youth that, it is actually possible? Thank you, that's my question.
Thank you very much. So we'll take one more, then I'll yield the floor to the panel.
Hello, good afternoon. Happy birthday in advance, Pastor Ituah. My name is Letitia Bertrand. My middle name is Ifine. Take this off. So 1 minute, not sure how much I can get out in 1 minute. However, the reason I'm here today is to talk about how Nigeria can progress. Mistakes Nigeria made, I think one additional thing we could have added to this would have been way forward, call to action. So it's not just talking heads. Dr. Abati, you mentioned one of your respondents in your Instagram said everything is all about talking. It's time for action. So I've been in corporate America for over 20 years. I came back to Nigeria just briefly 2021 to retire. When I came here, I realized I couldn't retire. There's still so much work to be done. I went back to school at the University of Oxford, same as you did, to get an education in artificial intelligence. Because I believe that with technology, you can accelerate the progression of a nation. And I don't think that there's anything that is in the way of Nigeria coming to first world status. Within a very short period, even 5 years, at the most 10 years. And we can do this with technology. We need to prepare our young people. I believe in the power of our youth. I can tell you clearly before my 1 minute is up. Actually, I'll use two different examples. When I came by here in 2022, I believe, very briefly, I went down this road, went to the restaurant down the road here, a Japanese restaurant, and there was nobody there. I asked the manager, where are your customers? When I came out, I realized why. The road was just, it was like a pool, and the roads were so bad. I called Pastor Ituah and I said, who manages this road? Who's responsible for your road? He said, the governor. I said, it cannot be the governor. Somebody has this as their area of responsibility. He got me her name. I got in touch with her. I met her, and I met her along with the governor. Today, I think they're fixing that road. So we individually can help to move Nigeria forward. I believe in what Professor, the lady professor, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but you said clearly that we walk along the streets and we throw out a can of Coca-Cola, but there are results from our actions. So everybody, not just leaders, need to get involved. We all can make a difference. We all can make a change. So talking about artificial intelligence, we need to prepare our young people about machine learning, about neural networks, about prompt engineering. Teach them these things. You can mentor people. There's a gentleman that teaches chess in slums. When you walk down this road in the past, you'd see young people begging for money. You know what he did? He took them, he taught them chess. And with chess, they now have access. So just let's be creative in a way that we can solve the problems of Nigeria. I think that we have great potential in this country, and we're going to be able to get our people back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll just segue very quickly to the panel. I will try and keep this, we're running out of time, but let me just yield the floor to Mr. Chairman. I think the question essentially was around state capture that Mr. Peterside had spoken about earlier. So by way of advice going forward, how do we deal with this? Thank you, sir.
Well, on how I felt about so-called budget pattern, I think it's all misleading when you hear people say members of the National Assembly are cutting corners and trying to make money for themselves. Now, the story is simply this. I was a senator. 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 I was a 1999-2003. The presidential system would pick ministers from 36 states at the time who didn't contest any election, who had no understanding what the people needed and why people contested to represent them. Then those are the ministers who drove the budget and place what they believe is best for your constituency. So we argued at the time, Obasanjo was the president, and we said, look, Mr. President, you can't have your ministers come to my senatorial district and place things which he or she has done without consulting me as the senator in charge of that district. Therefore, the need for constituency projects that the people want, which we then input in the budget. Now the catch is, the moment that was done and you pass the budget and it's enacted into a law, it becomes a responsibility of the executive to award the contracts to build those projects. You don't appoint the senator or the House of Rep member to appoint the contractors. Some would have done that, some others wouldn't do that. But so there's absolutely nothing wrong with constituency projects being put in the budget where ministers from your state who have no understanding what the people needed, the people you stood elections to represent without consulting you would input and expect that to work. Now, so it's a question of if you do it right, then it's good. If you don't do it right, then it's bad. Now, appointment of state. The Constitution says every state will have a minister. Beyond that, some president will then appoint one more each per senatorial district or state to make about 48. Today we have much more than that. Now, I believe that a president, he or she, that wants the best for himself or herself in his or her cabinet, can find the very good persons, men and women, to appoint from those states to be ministers. What we've done mostly is to give people, that compensate people for being party members. That wouldn't work. And I also want to emphasize here that there is no state in this country or local government where you won't find very smart men and women who appoint to jobs. We just need to do our homework properly and appoint the right persons to the right jobs. Moral values. Moral values. I said that in my paper, that there's needed to look at our moral values. There's need to make our policies based on our cultural and traditional values. What do I mean? Every society have things they abhor, and they're so clear to everyone. So make policies, federal policies or government policies that enhances those things, and so we'll get the better buying by your community. Education. I talked about funding education, and I meant it. You can't have a country where you have your educational institution weak and expect to have the best people coming up to lead you. That won't work. So invest a lot of money in education. Today is AI, artificial intelligence. We missed the boat some years ago. Now a new world order is playing out. And that new world order will be driven by AI. So why don't you invest in education, in technology, such that your young men and young women would join the other more developed world at that stage and begin to build a stronger and better economy and better people for yourself. And lastly, is the question of contracting. I recall during Obasanjo's regime, I was a lieutenant colonel. We ordered 19 ships, and they're all built abroad. I recall at the same time, India was also ordering some ships. What did they do? Indians said, you will produce X number of this product in your country. The remainder will be produced in my country. And so those companies you were buying from were then forced to come and establish in your country to build those products. Had we anchored our contracting to foreign contractors to say to them, if I wanted 60 SUVs, 200 SUVs, you will build 100 in your place, the remaining 500 will be built here, you must set up your shop here. If you did that, you have transfer technology, you have expertise, you have job creation, and you have a better economy. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, General. I do apologize. We're running out of time, so I know a lot of people wanted to ask questions. We've asked that you write them down, and okay, maybe I'll just take 2 or 3 very quickly, please. We are running out of time. The lady, please come forward, and we draw the line after that.
Good afternoon. My name is Engineer Adelaja Oshoba. I have a comment and then I have a question. Right. Atedo criticized his remarks, said in January 1966, the politicians made mistakes by not curbing their excesses. My question is, does that give rights to the military to take over? In a nation where you have law and order, there's a process to solve that. Now, the military, this goes to the general as well. The Nigerian Army was founded in 1956, if I get it right. The motto is victory in God alone. It's apt that we're in a church where we serve a God of law and order. Everything is in order. When I came in today, my car had to park at the end. We didn't just park anywhere because this is a place of law and order. So a nation is built on law and order. So in 1956, the military, the army, in 1956, the Nigerian Army was founded. It was under British command.
I'm really sorry, sir. You need to be very brief. Please ask your question.
Some background.
Yes.
I land my question because it's all about mistakes made in Nigeria. So in 1956, the military was founded. It was under British command up to February 1966, when it was taken over by Agu Ironsi. 11 months after that, they had the first school. So in 10 years plus, or nearly 10 years, there was no problem under British command. The minute they gave it to the Nigerian commander, there was a coup in 11 months, in January 15. My question is, where does character of the individual play in nation building? Because the mistakes we've made seem to be that we have characters that are flawed in leadership positions. Thank you.
Much, please, your question.
My wife spoke earlier, but my question is different. I'm a retired U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer, and our goal in the Navy is to, one of our goals in the Navy is to do for the country what we can do. And we follow orders from above and we govern people below. Y'all need to take, I strongly recommend you take your senior military enlisted personnel. We have ours as chief, senior chief, master chief, you make those people the branch that goes across the country, not just for Navy, but for all the Army and Marines, or if you have all your military, that those people be the people in charge of the poles, around the poles with weapons, armed guards, make sure no people mess around like we did this last election. That should never happen in any personal election. It's your country, y'all own it, fix it. This bullcrap should never happen again. I was here, it should never happen again. I can't vote yet, but I may in the future. But anyway, if there are people here who give you good ideas, listen and take them for action. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The final question, and it's fitting that it's from a lady, please.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yetunde Daramola, and I work with a non-profit organization called IFA Reading Society. And this has given me opportunity to work with students, primary school students, secondary school students, university students. We are talking about the mistakes Nigeria made. I want to talk about mistakes we are presently making that is ongoing, and that's our youth, the kids. I don't know, a lot of the people in government are their older generation, and the hope is to pass down the reign of power to the youth. How confident are we that the present youth of Nigeria will lead this country to greatness? We can all see around us how things are. Yahoo has taken over. Prostitution has taken over. There's so many things wrong with the youth of this country. When I drive in the streets of Lagos, I am scared. I worry about them. I worry about the future of my little boy. Because if I work hard and I train him, he goes to school and he comes back, there are kids on the street that are not getting training. They're going to point at their guns at him one day to rob him. So my question is, how do we really, not for mouths, not by doing photo ops and going to give biscuits and sweets and notebook in school, how do we really save the youth? And they are the future of this country. Please. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Yetunde Daramola. I think that's a fitting place. Okay, all right. My hands are tied. I have to allow this speaker.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy birthday in advance, Pastor Ituah. My name is Frida GSSP from Moli. I just want to recall, because I'm actually an educator, and I want to just make a statement which goes by, the child is the father of man, which is a phrase from William Wordsworth's poem that my heart lifts up. So basically, everyone has been talking about the foundational issues. I would recall the first person from the audience talking about the foundation. And I want to recall what Dr. Ruben Abati said. He mentioned about the youth, but I think the youths have been stereotyped. When we talk about the youths in Nigeria, we talked about betting, Yahoo, which is internet fraud. But the truth of the matter is that the youths are all amongst us. I want to talk about, like in America, where we have political families. You have the Kennedys. They've been in politics from generation to generation. We equally have the Bushes, who have produced two presidents. So my point is, the foundation has to be corrected, and we need to raise ethically correct youth, because we are talking about AI now. And if we are not ethically correct, we are going to use AI to still drive fraud and all other negativities. So now, how can we develop a pipeline both for the citizens and for politicians? How can all generations be educated, both formally and informally? Because now we have, from the baby boomers to the Gen Alphas. I want to also digress. Shortly before we started the colloquium, before the event started, I was talking to one of my dear Gen Alphas here, and she said, I'm not interested in these politics of a thing. I said, really, you should be interested. It's your country. And she said, I'm not interested in being a politician. But then again, I could be a politician, but not in Nigeria. I said, but Nigeria is your country now. So the truth of the matter is that we need more education from the grassroots. So how can all generations be educated, both formally and informally?
What kind of succession plan can be put in place to ensure sustainability of reforms put in place in the system? What are the affirmative actions that can be put in place? Enough of the talk. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much. So we'll just, in wrapping up, a number of questions have been asked, but I would like to ask the panelists to just wrap some of your answers into your closing remarks. I think the chairman has basically dealt with a lot of the initial questions, so I'll come to you, Mr. Peterside. A number of the questions were still talking about the need to get it right from a foundational perspective. I think the phrase that Dr. Abati used was declaring a national emergency on education. So as you wrap up, just tell us your views about, someone else spoke about a call to action. What do we need to do immediately to start fixing that foundation, education, healthcare, and all of those things that can catalyze the strengths that exist in our young people, sir?
Well, thank you very much. A lot of talk has gone into this. Now action. The youth are there, teeming youth population. Can we ask the present government to please look into smelting, small scale and small and medium scale establishment that we have, to actually look very deeply into the needs of the youth, those who need entrepreneurship training, and to be empowered. If you keep saying somebody is not okay or is not good and you've not tried him, it's not fair. Can we then limit age range within which we will say, okay, young ladies and men of certain strength and age, not falsified age, of course, and then empower them. And then let us also know that government cannot do it alone. I will address this to Pastor Ituah. Can churches that God has blessed not only establish university now and begin to also establish industries where youth can work? Can we look into this as part of the solution? Can we then call for reconciliation if apologies are needed? Because there are some people in this country who are bent on not seeing anything that is good that is happening in Nigeria. Dr. Peterside said we should praise when some things are being done well and other things are done badly, we should criticize. But there are people whose mind is made up because they are offended that no matter what, we will sabotage Nigeria. And in order to have a nation, we need to first forgive ourselves. And probably on behalf of everybody, starting from me, apologize for the mistakes Nigerians have made. And for all of us to come into a single space and move Nigeria forward. How do we do that? We should do inclusive governance. We should also correct mistakes of the past, promote good governance, and all those people in the National Assembly, and then even the citizenry. Can we stop collecting money that these people will now go and collect as constituency project and be paying debts when they return home? During election, can we all also be very faithful and vote those we want to vote as part of the reform, while we talk to government to also make our vote count? Then can we also look into, like I said, strengthen infrastructure? Let us not continue to create more infrastructure, create agencies, but strengthen the ones that are there. And like the government is trying to do, merge duplicates. There are a lot of duplicated agencies doing the same thing, job but for the boys. But if we merge and then put the best into the right position, irrespective of ethnicity, religion, and whatnot, so that we can get the best for Nigeria. And then celebrate excellence. Then, like was said, I'm in education system. We need infrastructure. We need research materials. We are the best. When we go out, our work works best. Nigerians are invited for the best. I know a Nigerian who just won an award from America, Mexico, and Canada at a conference. He became the first overall. We have the talent. Strengthen our education system, promote our healthcare, and so that we know that people well-being are taken care of. And lastly, I will say this because I have a lot to say, but I say we're out of time. Those youth have the strength to help us police Nigeria. They have information. They use all the gadgets. They are good with phones and iPads. They can locate where things are. Let's use them. Let us also go into community policing. Bringing somebody from Maiduguri to look at what is happening in Saleko in Lagos will not work. We can have the federal one that goes all around. But let us have our own. Let Abia, where the best is being produced in terms of shoes and everything, be strengthened. Let us have all that make in Nigeria goods. The East is very, very superb in productivity, in engineering. The North is very good in leather works and other raw materials. The West is extremely good in cash, crop, and all other intellects. Let us all come together, use the best of every region to get the best for us. In the US too, the Texas are for oil and for cows. The Utahs are for apples and other things. Let us all put our resources together, bring a very strong nation. Not only that, it cannot be done without you. Our entrepreneur and CEOs, don't all just mention those you can employ, train others that you can help employ, and give them some cash to establish small-scale businesses. Together we can do it, and we can make progress.
Thank you.
I just want to appeal to all of us.
Thank you very, very much. Please
and on this note, sir, I have, and it is to Abati. I'm going to give him a series of letters because I knew it, that we can't finish discussions here. And General saw me signing a lot of letters to our governors, to the president, and to all institutions, including the House of Assembly. I think you were wondering, what is this woman coming to mark here? There are letters to our leaders, including Pastor Ituah, on the way forward, which we cannot exhaust at this particular meeting. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Please put your hands together for Professor Olubukola Oyaoye. Thank you very much. Mr. Peterside, closing remarks, final pieces of advice for our dear nation.
Yes, I would just like to close by trying to respond to something that I kept hearing from the audience. People say, look, enough of all this talking, it's a call to action. Of course, I buy into that sentiment, action. But what exactly does action mean? Because I can, on a very rudimentary form, I can say that if you have a problem, there are only three things you can do as a human being. Think about it. You're either going to talk about it with a view to something, or you're going to fight with somebody, or you're going to do nothing. So there's a misconception that talking is not part of an action plan. I think that's a misconception. If you're just talking, and after talking, you think that's the end of it, then of course, that's a talk shop. But if you're talking as part of an attempt to mobilize, to engage people of like minds, with a view to coming together, to, even if it's to hold government accountable, because they don't say government, I don't speak any single government, those public officers accountable, even if all you're doing is constantly getting involved in whistleblowing, holding their feet to the fire, all that is part of a call to action. The only thing is that you should have it in your mind that these are all things that can help to get us into a better space. I think what is therefore missing is that, I said it earlier, we don't have enough change agents who are making themselves like the focal so on. Because there are several countries that people have shown studies. Even governments at a point, some have shut down social media because they were worried about some of the exposures and reactions or the dynamics it was creating. The truth is that we have to use those modern tools as part of our effort to call people to action. And social media is very, very important in terms of bringing about change. The Senegal that we're all celebrating, go and look at how active they were on the social media space, those youths. How else do you communicate in this day and age anyway? In the 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the mainstream media decided what was tomorrow's headline story. But today, media has moved to the point where the people very often determine what even the mainstream media would discuss. Why does Arise TV morning show talk about what is trending? They didn't create the trend, but they know that they can no longer ignore what is trending. So the point I'm making is that you can use all that because those are, it is the youth in their majority who decide what is trending and what to put energy on and focus. The important thing to do is to remember is that let's do it positively and productively. Because I get worried sometimes when people put out fake news. It actually demoralizes even their colleagues because you send out information that you know is false, people act on it. So it's about responsibly using social media and all those means of engagement that the youths used in Senegal. And if they used it there and it's being used around the world, we too have to use it. And I suspect also that in the last election cycle, many of our educated youth got politically active a little bit too late in the calendar because we can learn from that because this sort of things we are discussing is a marathon. You do not stop after one election cycle disappear and think you can get active again just 2 weeks before. Indeed, we've heard some candidates who have been ridiculed that they campaign, they lose the election, they disappear for 4 years. If you disappear for 4 years and come back, I almost guarantee you that you will lose again. You have to stay active in between. You have to give your opponent what he does not want by way of exposure, by way of whistleblowing, by way of holding their feet to the fire. So I want to end on that note that the engagement must be continuous. It must be intense. And that is what will bring green shoots, even from a government in your state or federal level that you may not like. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. The engagement must be continuous. Mr. Atedo, NA Peterside. Dr. Abati, final comments.
Okay, I'll try to be very brief. First, in terms of takeaways. One thing that I see, to use the phrase common thread in the conversation, is that nobody is blaming the outsider, which is the usual thing that we do in Nigeria. Those people who blame the outsider, they say, oh, the British caused this problem. So even if the British created this mistake, then we've had more than enough time as Nigerians to solve the problem, to correct it. So for me, that optimism, that belief that we can do it, it's a very important outcome of this session. The second thing that I notice is that there seems to be a consensus that there are no quick fixes, that there are no easy answers or solutions. Hence, the pluralism of views that we have seen here. But not to start, not to make an effort will be, a wrong thing to do. So that's the sense in which I see the call to action that people are talking about. Now, third, the question has been raised about youths. Why are we focusing on the youths? Why do we sound as if we're stereotyping the youths? Now, The point is that the youth constitute the bulk of the Nigerian population, almost about 60%. They are in the majority. And that number is going to increase even by the year 2030, considering the fact that in Nigeria, we don't even have any population management program. I've not said population control, I said population management. So you keep having, the number of young people increasing. Now, I share the view too, that look, it's not that every young person is bad. As Mr. Peters I pointed out, you have good people, you have bad people, you have ugly people. But the major challenge that we have goes back to that cliche. The youth are the leaders of tomorrow. If indeed they are the leaders of tomorrow, and the population is expanding rapidly, and we see potentials with what we've seen in music, in Nollywood, in fintech, even in agriculture. The challenge that we face is to expand that population of good, talented, young people of Nigeria. Once upon a time in this country, young people had almost equal opportunities. It was possible for a child born in Igbotako to end up as the CEO of a company. It was possible for a boy born in the corner of Onitsha to receive good education. He will come and say, oh, I attended CKC Onitsha at the time when CKC was a solid school. You see people say, oh, I went to government college Wari, I went to government college Ugeli. Today, only the children of the elites are having access to what you may call quality education. And although we have young people doing wonderful things in positions, many of these companies, what they do, they prefer to employ the children of the privileged who studied abroad. Those ones tend to get jobs faster. We shouldn't deceive ourselves. Our argument, therefore, about education is that we need to build capacity. We need to create an opportunity for both the children of the rich and the poor to be able to acquire the skills, to be able to compete, so that we can recreate a positive side of the past, whereby through education, we can empower that youthful population that will lead Nigeria to the future. But of course, I take the point that we cannot run away from the point that some youths, have moral issues. What Mr. Peters called moral hazard. And that is where the role of the church comes in. That's where the role of parenting comes in. You recall the examples that Mr. Peters has cited. Even during the return to civilian rule, some of the governors who are now adults, they were very young people. Did they make any difference? But we can't stop trying. We have to keep educating, both in the schools and also in churches, in places of religious worship, so that teachers can also be happy. It's a whole system. There is no quick answer, no quick fixes. But I've enjoyed this conversation very much. I hope that the community documenting some of the insights. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together once again for this wonderful panel, ably led by the chairman, General Ituah Ighodalo'S. Thanks to our keynote speaker, Mr. Atedo Peterside, and our discussants, Professor Yahweh and Dr. Ruben Abati. Recognize that the day is fast spent, so we're going to try and move along very, very quickly. There are one or two things lined up, but we'll see how we play with time. Please join me in welcoming at this point to give his own remarks our would-be celebrant. We're talking about the youth now, so I would like to invite a 63-year-old young man to please sprint up to the stage. And please put your hands together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can see he is a youth. There are one or two other things. We'll see how to blend it into the program, but I'm conscious that we've been here for quite a while. Pastor.
Amen. Let me just thank everyone very profusely, first of all, for honoring our invitation and being here today. I really, really thank you. Please give yourselves a
a round of applause. I am very, very encouraged. This colloquium started with my young friend, Jeremiah said, when I turned 60, I lost my wife about 6 or 7 months before. And he then said to me, he wanted to support me, to help me, to encourage me, to comfort me. And he thought that at the age of 60, I should have a colloquium and continue in my debate and interest of Nigeria. When we were in Christchurch many years ago, we used to have a conversation on a regular basis, the Timeless series at the museum. But having left Christchurch and all the challenges thereof, it was one of the things that I was a little bit discouraged about, and I left it to face Trinity House and my other activities. But Jeremiah came up again and said, maybe it's time to come back again. I think really what triggered it was the loss of my wife. I just felt that he needed to push me back up. And so Jeremiah, thank you very much for your thoughts, for your kindness, for your love, not just for me, but for my family. This is the second time he's doing that. When I lost my mom in 2005, I was about the time I met him. A couple of years after, he came back and said we should have a colloquium in honor of my mom. And we started doing that at the Yaba College of Tech, where he was just graduating from. So he's shown me this consistent love and communication. So that's why we're here today. But the essence of it is that conversation, 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 conversation. As a matter of fact, that's perhaps the only thing that has changed anything. When God created the world, we started with a conversation. The Bible says, and God said. It is when you say something, that somebody actions something, that the thing becomes actionable and it begins to produce results. So we must not stop talking. In Nigeria, maybe you have 90 words. The 90th word, like the last straw, might be that one that really moves the dice or changes the situation. But what is critical to me, is that I think that in this business of Nigeria, we should go back and discuss Nigeria. The Bible says that if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? If the foundation is not quite right, you have to knock it down and build it back again. But what has happened, and perhaps the biggest element of state capture that my brother and my senior Pastor Atedo Peter said, amen. Now he becomes a pastor. He was one of the people punishing me in Queen's College when I got there. Himself and Tunde Adewale. I think it was even my class prefect at a certain time, if I remember. Anyway, what he has alluded to as state capture, I think what is the biggest form of state capture is those who get into office failing to do the fundamental things that they need to do to correct Nigeria, because they now begin to benefit from the powers of that office. And it happens consistently all the time. When they're outside the office, they speak in a certain way. When they get into the office, they now begin to drag their feet about doing the fundamental things that need to be done to change the structure of Nigeria, because they are now benefiting from that office. It happens in the houses of assembly, it happens in the executive arms, and so on and so forth. But we must sit around a table, those of us who call ourselves Nigerians, and discuss Nigeria and agree how we want Nigeria to go forward. And if it results in some parts of Nigeria going one way or the other, then so be it. We must not be afraid of facing the truth, saying the truth, and discovering the truth, and deciding on what I think is the best way forward. As our chairman has rightly said, there is no part of Nigeria, especially in this day and age, that should be afraid of viability. I think one of the challenges we have in Nigeria is that some parts think that they are disadvantaged, they are afraid of viability, and
they are thinking that if Nigeria separates, they might be left in the short end of the stick. I don't agree at all. Singapore had no resources. Malaysia had limited resources and has done extremely well. And most of the resources you find in Israel, the same Israel, are actually resources of the mind. The mind is the biggest resource. And if you can change and transform the mind of the average Nigerian, you will transform Nigeria. Having said that, let me thank you all very much. My uncle, General Ituah Ighodalo'S, thank you so much. Ever so dapper, ever so handsome, ever so distinguished. Please accept from us this little token. Where's the token for General Nwachukwu, please? For accepting to chair this occasion and for doing a truly, truly remarkable job. Thank you so much. Those questions you've posed are questions we should all ask ourselves, and we're truly, truly grateful. Olu, are you bringing it here, or are you just going to leave it there? So thank you very much, sir, and God bless you, and God be with you. And please keep looking after my auntie and keeping her looking lovely. You know, I'll beg at a door not to take dowry from you. Thank you so much. Just a little plaque as a token of appreciation for you being here today. My senior, I won't tell you what his nickname was when we were in King's College. Otherwise, he might sue me or send me up or punish me himself. You know, there's a time one of my prefects gave me imposition. That's what we had in King's College. You wrote 1,000 words. So I didn't know he would read it. I abused him thoroughly in the big box is full of dollars. Thank you so much for being here today and for really supporting me and being a loud and strong voice in Nigeria. God bless you. Really appreciate you. Right. Professor Mrs. Oyawoye, thank you so much. She's come all the way from Ekiti to be here with us. She came in last night. Let's move forward. And all at her own expense. You know, so thank you so much, Prof, for being with us today. And thank you for those very clear and distinctive words that have been a source of encouragement. This is a plaque for you to hang in your office and just some gifts for you to take back. Thank you so much. And then last but definitely not the least, my friend and my brother, His Excellency Rubeno Abati. The fair of Ruben on Arise TV is the beginning of wisdom for most politicians. Amen. You know, being part of the political process now, they have permutations, how they are going to face Ruben. Some of them fast and pray, and then I take the offering. Ruben, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being such a great voice in Nigeria. God bless you. I think I am done with the gifts. I'm really, really grateful to everyone, and I'm thankful to you and thankful to God. I also want to thank Mrs. Olurakinyo. I'm really thankful also of Mr. Olurakinyo, who as like head of organization
in Trinity House for all the great things that she does to support me. I'm told we have 3 plaques more, one for Pastor Bayo Rotimi, the son of the house. Thank you so much for your clear and wonderful moderation of this afternoon's event. We can always trust you, Bayo. When they said who should moderate, Bayo, I said I have 3 names, Bayo, Bayo, and Bayo. Thank you. Also, my daughter, she did an excellent job last year, and she's come and done a wonderful job this year again. Temitayo Ayoride, thank you so much, Temitayo. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought you were Pastor, there's one for SIO for publishing the event every year, and this for Ighodalo family. Ighodalo family. Okay, they say one for SIO, collected by one of the founding partners of SIO. His name is Ituah Ighodalo. I think that's all right. Ighodalo family. It has the picture of my father on it. I think my sister should come and collect that one. My sister Toluwalope Amehi Ighodalo. Okay, Biodun Aribi, our managing partner, I hear you are here. Please give him a round of Sister Tolu, please come up. Let me give yours to you. Oh, Biodun will collect on behalf of SIO, our managing partner. In SIO, we've gone through a restructure and a succession plan. And Biodun Aribi is our new managing partner. He sacked me and took over my job, but that's okay. Biodun is doing a wonderful job. Please let me clap for him so that he will increase my bonuses and I can spend more time in church. Biodun, thank you so much. My regards to Robert and Ladi, and of course my sister on behalf of her parents, Jeremiah and Folayegbe Ighodalo. Thank you so much. Thank my sister for me. She's been a big pillar of support. The final plaque goes to the causer of the trouble, Pastor Jeremiah Akinsele, founder Triumph Foundation. Jeremiah, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you for being who you are, and thank you for all your hard work. Thank you so much. Amen. Mrs. Olurakio, a handshake. She supports Jeremiah and makes everything work for us. All I need to do is to whisper to Mrs. Olurakio what my heart's desire is, and she makes it possible. Thank you so much, Mrs. Olurakio, for being such a great support. I'm going to take my seat right now while the Temidayo, I beg your pardon, gives a few more recognitions. But I'll be a bit remiss if I don't recognize 2 people personally here. One is the new Baba Adini of Lagos. Baba Adini of Lagos. Alhaji Dr. McFoy, my personal friend and co-traveler in this journey of religious harmony. Please give Baba Adini a round of applause. He's come out of his schedule to be here today and to be part of this. You know, a few years ago, just before COVID, I said to myself that we must have religious harmony in Lagos. And I went to the central mosque, took off my shoes, entered the mosque, and went to see the chief imam. And I said to him, we must work together, whether he likes it or not. And then he put Alhaji McFoy and myself on a committee, and only for Alhaji McFoy to become Baba Adini late last year. So we knew we were going to work together, and we're still working together to ensure that there's religious harmony, there's progress, there's a desire to make sure we speak across all lines in Nigeria.
The second person I must recognize is my own little wife, if you'd like, my own little wife, the wife of my nephew, the present Oni of Ife, who came all the way from Ife to be here today. Please welcome with me Olori Ogunwusi. Thank you very much, my dear wife, for coming all the way from Ile-Ife. I know the Oni made sure you got up early to come. When I finished my devotion at 6:30, I switched off my phone and I saw that she said, Egbon, I'm on my way. And here she is. We thank God for joining mercies. And please give the Oni my deepest love and appreciation. Thank you all. God bless you.
A round of applause, a resounding round of applause for the celebrant. His birthday is in a few days. Photographers, please gather around. We'll have a group picture very, very briefly. While the picture session is going on, we welcome once again our Regal Majesty of the Source, Olori, Dr. Ambassador Temi Tokbe Enito Ogunwusi, wife of the Oni of Ife. You're welcome. I recognize Chief Adebayo Alda, Alawe of Iru Kingdom, representing the Oba of Iru. We welcome you. Thank you very much. Engineer Ade Oshoba, the MD of GT Corp International Limited, we welcome you. Mr. Gideon, please join us. Olayeri of the Nigerian Immigration, thank you very much. Mr. Zebulon Agomo, editor Sunday Business Day, we recognize your presence, sir. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Emeka Uguoju, Chairman BOT Southeast South Professionals, thank you very much for honoring the invitation today. Dr. Cynthia Gregg, MD CEO Safety Signatures Limited, we recognize you, ma'am. Deputy Archbishop Emme Udom, we recognize you, thank you very much. Engineer Mrs. Maye Adetiba, past President Association of Consulting Engineering in Nigeria. Principal Partner Delchem Associates, we recognize you, ma'am, thank you very much. Mr. Adedeji Badejo, Principal Information Officer, Directorate of Corporate Services of the Federal University, Oye, we recognize you. If you did not register, or if you have not registered yet, it is important that we have your email. It is very important that we have your email addresses. There are some questions that we have not fielded today. They will be attended to and sent to your email. While we wait for you to take your emails and register, we would like to call Dr. Tomi Oyeshola. Please make way to the podium. Thank you very much. A resounding round of applause for Dr. Tomi Oyeshola. Dr. Tomi is saddled with the responsibility of communicating the communique to us. And that is why it is important that you give us your emails, so that what she's about to read, you would also have it with you in your emails. Thank you very much. Dr. Tomi Oyeshola, everyone.
Good afternoon once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The discussions have been very great and informative with the two discussants, Dr. Ruben Abati and Professor Mrs. Oyawoye. And of course, all the invited guests and participants of this special colloquium. So the colloquium actually started with the brief remarks by the chairman of the day, General Ike Nwachukwu, and talking about the mistakes that Nigeria made. Is a wide-ranging subject to deal with, but very important for us to know for our survival as individuals, ethnic groupings, and of course, as a nation. He talked about a lot of things, and he touched on the political factors, economic factors, security, and social factors. The keynote speaker also, Mr. Tedo Peterside, looked at the actions after the independence, about 9 actions, or 9 problems, so to speak, and some of the solutions. I will not delve into that so that we don't take too much of your time. And Professor Oyawoye also reacted to the speeches by the chairman of the day and the keynote speaker, talking about Nigeria as an entity, what we should be as a nation, and the mistakes Nigerians made, or Nigeria, as it were, made in the past by allowing ethnicity to define us. The discussion started with Dr. Reuben Abati also by reacting to the speeches by the chairman of the day and the keynote speaker. He started with a summary of what someone commented on his social media page, that all talk shops are nothing more than just talks, and that don't you guys, I mean, we always talk about different things with respect to Nigeria, but what are the solutions? So very quickly, I'll go to the summary. The observations for today, that after these robust discussions on issues relating to the mistakes Nigeria made, the following observations and recommendations. Number one, that our political structure choice is an observation as one of the mistakes of Nigeria. One of the answers to this political structure is the fact that our military had policies which we thought at the time were the best. Some of them were good. Unitarizing our polity was a mistake, but we can give the military benefit of the doubt, and the military, you know, had to run with what they had, the command system, which was now changed. It was noted also that we gave the youth the wrong compass, which really needs to be corrected. On electoral reforms, we cannot have an election that is flawed. We are not only digging our country deeper into oblivion by denying young Nigerians the right to choose those they believe that should lead them. The fourth thing was that the presidential system is not good for Nigeria, and we need to decentralize and give autonomy over the judiciary and our resources. And apart from the mistakes of the past, which we made, our focus should be on mistakes that we should not make going forward. And finally, what are the action points and what are the steps that we need to take as a nation? We should have a culture of reporting deficiencies, failures, and anomalies in the regulatory system through the media and other communication channels. To ensure proper implementation of regulatory policies, we need to ensure that there is unity by avoiding or stopping ethnicity or cultural and religious barriers. We need to put in place checks and balances to ensure accountability, and we need to educate our youths, mentorship for them, and of course proper coaching. The educational system of the country
out of this program for this year. The request is for all of us to stand where we are, stand up as we take our national anthem. We're supposed to stand where we are without moving. We're supposed to stand where we are without talking. Are we going to make the same mistakes that our heroes past have been making? Are we going to continue to make the same mistakes? Or we will stay where we are and let us have the national anthem. Thank you very much, wonderful people. Let us keep the dates for next year. It will be communicated in our emails. God sparing our lives. Continue to pray for Nigeria. Continue to pray for the convener of today. And all will be well with our nation. Thank you, everyone.